The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
The top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tuesday night, episode 36 of the Industry of Comics. We have busy. 36 in a row. 36 in a row, my friend. So in NYCC this last weekend, tons of news from that, which is
That's
crazy.
still a thing?
Oh man, it was nuts this year. And then lots of other stuff going on. Some crazy news. Diamond's shutting down, closing down a warehouse. All this crazy stuff is going on. And we had a long conversation the other night about how quickly the comic book industry and the landscape of being a retailer is changing. And what you need to know is so different in things you need to know, and how to pivot and what to do here and what to do there. And, you know, opening up a brick and mortar shop as compared to, you know, doing it yourself on your own from home, and the things you got to learn. There's all these crazy things that a lot of people don't realize the work you got to put in starting up your retailer world, post being a retailer and having to, you know, learn how to kind of in and out and picking the best pivots and where to go and reading the tea leaves, so to say. So we're going to get into that today, but yeah, lots of fun. I am here with Mr. Bucky's himself, Jesse James, and Wonderworld Comics, Dennis Barger. What's going on, guys?
Having a awesome weekend. I am going to show you my great pickups this weekend real fast to start off. Usually, you know, we talked about how when we get these calls to go see collections, I get a call, guy has 8 short boxes, and he says, you're not going to want any of these because they're all, there's no Marvel and DC in these 8 short boxes at all. I said, I'll take them. And he goes, well, they're over there and you can look through them. If you need 15, no, I'll just take them. Give me a price. So he gives me a price, done. Give me a cart. So I get home and I'm going to show you some of the cool pickups I got. So obviously got a Bloodstone #1 right off the bat.
That's totally not Marvel.
Yeah. Oh, it is Marvel. Oh, shoot. Well, that is, yeah, Marvel. Sorry about that. And then
No, he's the one that told you there was no Marvel.
Right. No,
Barcode SpongeBob. Amazing.
SpongeBob #1.
But that's a barcode SpongeBob one.
It's a newsstand,
And hey, I'm just showing stuff. I don't need your critiques. Razor with the CD, polybag sealed. And then I picked up the Wildstorm Ghost set out of the boxes. I've only gone through one
Modern
box.
Modern Warfare Ghost, yeah.
So pretty cool. So I was excited about that. I still have 6.5 boxes to go through. And so that just, again, shows what we're talking about. Just buy everything, folks. Don't open up boxes and go through this thing. Get a great price. Obviously, if the guy is asking more money, you want to, you know, then look in those boxes. But in this case, they were so cheap. Dennis, I was joking. You can't talk. You look like, how dare you say that?
Jesse, I just think it's so cute that you had time to bag and top loader and bring home 6 books to show everyone, because
no, they're in my room. They're in my room. They're in the collection.
That's so cute. You bring your comic books home with you.
Yeah, no, I'm in my studio. Where the hell am I supposed to be? I'm in Florida.
Yesterday, let me tell you, Mr. Jesse, you have too much free time on your hands, because I bought 6 shorts and a long box that used to belong to one of my biggest enemies, and I know it belonged to him because 3 of the mailing labels and all of the subscription books all had his name and address on it in the boxes. I haven't even had time to go through them yet. In the boxes, there's a first Bullseye. What is that? 131.
Shield.
Daredevil
Or
131.
is it?
There's a first Inhumans, second Inhumans from the FFs, from the Avengers, all the run of Avengers from like 200 to 300. So all the first in there, Nebula, all of that. It was absolutely insane, and that came after 2 Pokemon collections, a Magic collection. It's just it has been nonstop. And then today, great news for everybody watching. We caught the freaking kid that stole the $1,200 card today.
You got him.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, he got him.
Yeah.
We got him. We got our man. One of my employees is like, so-and-so to Dennis, I need to see you right away. And I was like, oh, shit. What the F is going on? So I go out, and they're like, the guy, he's in the other store. And I'm like, what? The guy who stole the card. Which guy? Because there's like millions of guys that you have to alert me to. And she's like, the guy who stole the card. And I'm like, really? What's it? White shirt, other side. And I'm like, oh, shit, that is him. Come here, kid. I go, come outside here. I go, call security. So security comes over, and I'm like, yeah, gentlemen, let me introduce you to the kid that stole the $1,200 card from us 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, oh, can you come over here real quick? You got an ID? Got a school ID? And no, he wore his, to answer the nerd woodworkers, he was wearing his T-shirt with the high school, and that's what she saw because she knew she was looking for, that school. And he was wearing the T-shirt, not the hoodie. And then it turns out he was taking his girlfriend to the mall for their 2nd month anniversary. So the girlfriend had to sit off to the side while he's getting grilled by mall security and me. Then the police showed up, called his mom.
Good.
Read his mom the riot act. I mean, kid's 15 years old. So what are you going to do? They weren't going to slap the cuffs on him and take him
Get your
downtown.
card back, at least. That's what you're going to do.
So, yeah. So that's the thing. We got all of his info. We got all of his stuff. He says he's bringing the card first thing Thursday morning. And, happy ending to that story.
Yep. Yeah,
Not
there's always a
bad.
good ending. There's very rare that this stuff ends in a negative way. It always turns positive. But I think what happens is you get a lot of people that they sulk about it every single day and don't understand. They got to go out, they got to sell. Like you said, you bought 6 short boxes and a long box, even though I kind of think you said that because I said I bought 6 short boxes and a long box. But that's okay.
I mean, I didn't get no, SpongeBob #1 with the barcode, but I'm pretty happy with the first Bullseye.
I don't care about the dollar amount. I was excited about getting a SpongeBob #1. Mm-hmm. It's a cool book. I don't have one. But anyways, that's what it's about. So you want to make sure before we move on to our topics that you don't get stuck in a negative zone that definitely you can't control. It's not like Dennis was sitting there every day saying, oh my gosh, I hope that guy comes in. I hope that guy comes in. No.
Right. Nope. You got to be like water. Bruce Lee said it best. You have to be like water.
Yep.
You have to flow with everything. It's going to happen once you have the video and once, you can't let that stop you. You have to keep moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah. Amen. All right. So, man, a lot of crazy stuff happened this weekend. We'll get into New York, I imagine, at some point later on during the show. But Jesse, you were kind of talking about some interesting things about some things you need to learn. Maybe what is it that time period in between when you decide you want to start a retail business, but you don't know what to do next.
Right. And I think what happens is you got basically D-Day when you open up your store, and a lot of people think, okay, when I open up my store, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. But me and Dennis can tell you X, Y, Z starts out almost 90 days before you even start. Just getting your name, just trademarking your name, right? going through that process. I can't tell you how many people have given me great names. Oh, I'm going to open up my store, and I go over my thing. I do a little search. Oh, by the way, that name's taken. Right? So you have to really research what that name is. And the difference between today and, I don't know, Dennis, maybe 4 years ago, we say retailer, but a retailer has actually become a seller. There's not many retailers anymore. There's a lot of sellers, and then you have this small percentage of the retailers. So we're talking about the retailer side of it, because some of you might say, well, I don't need this or that. So the first thing you have to do is you have to learn what you're going to be. Are you going to be an S Corp? You're going to be a C Corp? You're going to be an LLC, proprietary. And you have to go through and you have to figure out. Most people, I don't know, Dennis, are you an LLC? What are you?
I'm an S Corp, actually. So I contacted my accountant in part of that pre-PEP sort of area. I didn't have an accountant. I did all my taxes myself. I said, look, I'm going to need an accountant to help me figure out how to set this thing up. And this old accountant was like, first thing you do, file for your S Corp. If you get your S Corp, hang on to that piece of paper for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Because it's not easy. You have to file for these things. And S Corp is, when you're a DBA, it's kind of an umbrella. An S Corp, an LLC is like an umbrella over a DBA, and an S Corp is like an umbrella over all of it. So I'll give you some generalizations. I've been sued several times. They all want to sue me.
Right.
Okay. It always says Dennis Barger. My lawyer, the first thing he does is, did Dennis Barger personally do you wrong? Well, yes, he was the owner of this store that did this. Okay, well, he's the owner of a store, but your problem is with a corporation. You can only sue the corporation. You cannot pierce the corporate veil and get to Dennis. So that's one of the hugest protections that you have. You cannot come after me. You can only go after Wonder World Comics or Men in Black LLC, which is an S Corp. So you have to put these layers of protection so that this house back here doesn't get lost when somebody slips and falls in your store.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And so a lot of people, they'll go on there and go open my bank account. Well, you have to have your S Corp, you have to have your LLC to open up your bank account. You just can't go open up Just James Comics. So then ask for your letters of incorporation, but you have to bring that. So it's a challenge for 90 days of what you have to do before you even talk to a landlord to discuss a lease. And so a lot of people get very frustrated at that because they think they're just going to sell. That they open up the door and they're going to sell. Figuring out who your credit card server is going to be. Who's taking your credit cards? Is it PayPal? Is it Square? Is it the bank that you're with? Right?
Jesse, well, let's talk about that for a second. Because that's something we've never discussed. We've never discussed it. And no offense, Brian, I doubt you've ever had that problem.
No.
Okay, no. Jesse, go through the last 15 years of bank processing evolution that you've gone through, and then I'll tell you mine.
Right. So originally, bank processing was very simple. You would work with a merchant who would send you a machine, right? And you'd have this credit card machine, and they're these big, bulky credit card machines, whether it be from, Wells Fargo, Chase banks. And then what happened is merchant services came in, and merchant services were saying, well, you really don't need to go to the bank because they charge you 2.2%. We're then charge you 1.85%. But we're then do it ourselves, right? And by doing that, after a year or 6 months, you'll then be able to get merchant advances, which are much easier to get than a bank loan. But tremendously easy, because what are they doing? They're saying, we'll then take your sales that we're already making money on. We're now then project in 6 months that we can give you a $20,000 loan. And based on that loan, we're then give you 8 months, but we're then take 16% out of your charges. Why? Because we have the confidence that you're running it through our machine. And you sign an affidavit that you won't get another machine and all this stuff. But then a great well, I'm not going to say a great company because I can't say that because I am contracted through Square, but a company came out called PayPal, right? And PayPal said, you don't need to do that and you don't need to do this because this is what we'll then do. And that big machine that you have to use, we're just going to give you this little cube, right? And you just hook this into your phone or you hook this into your computer and we're going to charge you 1.75%. And then we're going to give you these bigger loans, right? I was back in the day as a Godfather account, and I'm sure Dennis was a Godfather account, where the loans were big ass loans that you were getting, right? Because
for who? For who?
What? From PayPal.
From who? Oh yeah. I think the most I ever got was $15K from PayPal.
Yeah. So you start getting these $100,000 loans or $50,000 loans or $15,000 loans. But again, you're paying back something per purchase, but you're not actually paying them, right? So you're not saying, oh, I got to write this freaking check or I got to go online and pay this. So the evolution became PayPal. But not all of us were happy with PayPal, right? A lot of things changed. They were brand new and a great company came out who actually, well, I need to be careful on how I said this. I made a decisive choice to go over to Square because Square was more competitive. The rates were better. My interest on my loans were then be better. And I got a lot of cool stuff with it. So we evolved technically, if I go back 43 years from this, right? With the little
magnetic,
charcoal
paper,
receipt, right? That you went through this to this evolution of banks, to the evolution of merchant, to PayPal, to Square. Now look where we're at. We're at Clover, Shopify, all these items. So the way that we process has completely changed versus, those guys that still just only take cash. But to be able to pivot from all those instances, right? And today, the final part is, listen, we don't even do anything. The person just taps their card.
Yeah.
And
so that's how we've evolved.
Square also takes Cash App and Apple Pay.
Right. Yeah.
So they can even tap their phones to your terminal now.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
my evolution was a little bit like Jesse's. I went the more traditional route. I first opened with my bank. My bank said, "Oh yeah, 3.5%. Oh, it's great." Here's the thing. You can't sell me. So all these people would come in. Oh, we can get you to 3.1. That's fine. The 0.4 is I know my bank's right down there, and if I got a problem, I can drive down there. It's worth the extra 0.4. Then these companies would come to you. And they'd be like, "Oh, hey, your credit card." I'm like, "What do you got? What are you giving me?" "Oh, well, we could do this and this." I'm like, "I already have that." So it was really hard for all these people to come in and sell me. And I mean, we were processing $250,000 a year through, probably about $125,000 a year through credit card processing. And, so I had the numbers and they all wanted my business, but they weren't willing to give me anything. I made the first company that got to sell me was a company that had one of the first ever credit card terminals that you could take with you to shows. And I don't know if you remember shows about 15 years ago, but you'd always see the dealer outside the convention center holding up these little handheld devices because you couldn't get a Wi-Fi signal inside the thing. But I made them give me one of those for free. I think it was originally like $1,000 piece of technology, but I was like, look, if you want a piece of my business, you're going to give me one of these and we'll go from there. And then so they got me down to like, I want to say 2.8, 2.9. And I got one of these free terminals, and then they turned over my terminal, modernized my Hypercom system over, and I was getting 2.9. I never went to PayPal because I still had that, that really nice, printed paper. That was the problem with the PayPal terminal. It did not print out a receipt, and I always like to give the receipt. And I could always go back over through the program and pull up the transaction in that digital printer. But I will be the second person in here. And Jesse, send this to Square because I want to deal with Square.
Sure.
When I opened this store, well, I had Square at the end of my other run. I switched over to a different credit card processor, and that little handheld thing was obsolete at that point. So I did go Square for shows. I had the little plug-in thing.
Yeah. No Square.
So then iPhone decided to be stupid, and they got rid of the phone jack.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And so you could no longer put that little Square doohickey into your iPhone. So I'm like, well, that was stupid. But then Square comes to the rescue, and all of their terminals, they started making that little wedge terminal, the one that looks like a little doorstop.
Yep.
And I got a hold of one of those, and I was like, holy hell, this does everything. My son programmed in all of our SKUs and all of our things, and we could take that to a show. We could organize. So I think I got one in 2017 or 2018 for Star Wars Celebration, and we programmed all of our variants and all of our price points into that machine. So then I opened up the store in 2022, and then I realized, oh, crap, I can run each one of these as their own individual POS system. So now I have 3 accounts within my one Square account. And I have Wonderworld as one Square. Then you can switch over to Dystopia as the second Square. And you can switch over to shows. So there have been weekends where I've been at a show, the 2 stores are functioning, and I can literally just go through Square and go, okay, what's Wonderworld at? All right, good. What's Dystopia at? All right, cool. And then the one thing that blows my mind with all of this, and I mean, you're talking to somebody who had a Diamond POS system. Oh, that's why I switched to Diamond POS, and they had their own internal credit card processing.
Yeah.
That.
Through Comic Suite?
The suite, the Comic Suite. Yeah. So I had to switch over to their processing because it went through the POS terminal.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
So that's when I lost all the other stuff, but I switched to Square for the shows. So yada, 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 make a long story short, I don't know what I'm paying. It's probably $2.7, $2.8, somewhere in there, whatever Square's giving me. They give you a cash advance, like Jesse said. It's amazing. For $150 for each one of the stores, I have a little terminal. I have another terminal that I could take with me to shows. I can process, and then on top of that, I can do weekly, daily, monthly, annually, 3 months. I can go all the essential data for every one of my stores, and I could break it down, and I could see, Wonderworld sells the most $20 items.
Yep.
Dystopia sells the most $10 items. When I go to shows, our average sale is $25. And it's night and day.
Yeah.
And it's less than everybody I've ever paid to process my credit cards.
Yeah, and whatever the fee is, and just so you folks know, it's a cost of doing business. So don't spend too much time trying to negotiate 0.1%, right?
Exactly, Jesse.
It's longevity that you are with these people. Because what happens is, if let's say you go to the bank and they say, "Well, how do you get your money?"
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
The bank wants to steal that business from Square.
Yeah, exactly. And they said, "Well, wait a minute. You were with Square for 6 months. You were with XYZ for 6 months, and you were with 6 months for this person. So you don't have longevity." Right? If you go to Square and you want to get a loan, they'll then say, "Oh, you've been with us a year or 2 years, so we can use those money." So you want to use your own money to build what your value of your business is, so you can go get that capital when you need it. And this capital is easy. It's not like you're filling out paperwork.
Well, I'll throw one more thing in there, Jesse.
Sure.
And back when Amazon was doing monstrous for us. Amazon used to do the same thing. They would come to us about every 6 months to a year and offer us. Now, when we were talking about the 15K, I remember right after we moved, Amazon would offer us these business loans. And I think I once took as much as 25K, and they would take that out of our per transaction fee on Amazon. Sure. Yep. So that was also a very big helpful because they took care of all the credit card processing, everything. We didn't have to do anything, but they were like, oh, you're making $300,000 a year on Amazon. Would you like 25 grand to buy some more inventory? Sure.
Yeah. And the great thing about this versus bank loans is when you get that 25,000, let's say they had 2,000, whatever it is, 27,000, and that gets down to 13.5, you automatically qualify to up your loan.
Renegotiate it. Yep.
Exactly. Because you paid off half of it.
Right.
Oh, let's see where we'll give you another 20 grand. We'll then pay off this loan and give you another loan. So what happens is, like, if you look at my Square account, I've had like 9 loans paid off with them.
Yep. But much like Diamond, none of that gets reported to any credit card process or credit agencies.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't actually get to build positive credit like you would with a bank loan.
Right, exactly. And then that's
the only downside.
Right, that is the only downside. So after you do all that, right, after you go to the bank and you finally set up your bank, you get to rock and roll. No, you don't. Because guess who you get to deal with now? Now you got to deal with the state. Now you got to deal with the city. In Arizona, you have to deal with the county, right? So you got to pay 3 taxes, and you're like, whoa. So you got to do your setups. You got to get approved for that. So that's before you still go to your landlord, right? So you go through this process, and then obviously if you're going to the landlords, you're trying to get the best deal, find the best location, and then you start this process of actually creating the day you're going to open, right? And just so you know that people that you're negotiating these leases, you need to negotiate smartly to say, well, they're not going to charge me. Now, I'm the bad example, and Brian knows this. On my last location, I got a whole year's free rent. I don't mess around. You want me in your place? I want a year's free rent. They gave me a year's free rent. They didn't add it.
Jesse, it's funny you should mention this, but last week, with all the volume that we're doing out of the Mall of Monroe, and our social media has really been upping the game, we got a message from a local mall in Toledo. Hey, we really like what you're doing up there in Monroe. Would you be interested in some of our available locations? So I set up a site inspection, and tomorrow we're going down there. And Brian, I think I told you how much I pay in rent. It's a very small number, and it's what makes, it's so much.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not as big as Jesse over here. I've never gotten a full year free. Yeah. But we're going to see what we can get out of the Toledo Mall tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, so it really depends on your capital, on who you're using as who takes your credit cards. So let us know who that is, and then I can help you out on that. And so now you got all that. So you've got your LLC, you got your bank account open, you've got to the state, city, and county if you have to. Most places don't do county. Arizona does county. Now you're going to get your lease. And your lease has to be very transparent and fluent. So if you go in, you say, listen, it's going to take me 5, and I'm not going to go into TI and all this stuff. That's too confusing for everybody. But he says, okay, we have this, we're going to have you come in December 1st. And so what you want to do is the second you come to agreement, I want to move in today, not December 1st. I want to move in today, and I don't go and get charged a penny. I'm not going to open, but I just need warehouse space, right? And most landlords will let you do that because you now signed a lease with them and all that. And that's when the fun starts, because now you're trying to get your counters and all this stuff and displays, and you still got to price your comics, which is the hardest part of it, right? When you first start, you're trying to say, how the hell am I supposed to price these comics? You have to start your social networking. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whoever else I'm forgetting, all those other platforms. You have to get your business cards. You have to hire employees. If you're then hire employees, you have to go through that process. Putting in your security system, getting insurance. So everything that happens the 90 days before you open up the store, and everything you're going through, all the frustrations, and you get to open up the store, everything that you just did over 90 days disappears. And now you get into reality. And the reality is, that's the harder part, is getting past your first day.
Well, okay, so I'm going to add a few more things, but first, Brian, I threw a video in the private chat that I want you to play. It's 3 minutes, but it's worth it.
All right, let's see here. Okay.
So basically, what everything Jesse said is right, but you really don't know until the scale that you open is in front of you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that on my first store 19 and a half years ago, I didn't realize I had to do this. In the Wayne County, they tax you on every single fixture that's in your store. They don't tax you on inventory. The inventory is taxed by the federal government.
Yep.
And at that time, I had a particular formula that we used for our inventory purchases, and cost of goods sold and blah blah blah.
Right.
But then when I realized all of these comic books that I was hoping that would go up in value, and I wanted to over order so I could keep lots of copies of them for the future, like my 100 copies of Amazing Fantasy 15 First Amadeus Cho. All of that stuff had to be entered as sitting inventory at the end of the year. So there's a lot of stuff that isn't even included in what Jesse and I are throwing out there.
Sure.
And I bought all fixtures. I bought a lot of used fixtures. I bought out a Bible store that went out of business the month I was opening. So I got all of their tables, all of their chairs, all of their book fixtures, and now since then I bought out 3 Hallmark stores of all of their glass display cases, all of their glass. Of course, the one that the kid broke into was one of those Hallmark shelves.
Sure.
I didn't realize the flaw in that Death Star plan at the time. So there's so many things. It took me 19 years to figure out that those shelves could be popped like that kid popped.
Sure. Yeah.
You don't realize these things.
Yeah. Listen, the first time you call power and you're like, I just want to turn power on.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need $700. Well, no, I haven't moved in yet. No. We need $700.
Yeah. Brian, do you have that video? Here we go.
All right, settle down, people. We've got a lot to cover, and time is short.
One of the best movies
Two
ever
kinds
made,
of people in business today, the quick and the dead. So rather than waste your time this semester with a lot of useless theories, we're going to jump right in with both feet and create a fictional company from the ground up. We'll construct our physical plant. We'll set up an efficient administrative and executive structure. Then we'll manufacture our product and market it. I think you'll find it very interesting and a lot of fun. So let's start by looking at construction costs of our new factory.
What's the product?
That is immaterial for the purposes of our discussion here, but if it makes you happy, let's say we're making tape recorders.
Tape recorders? Are you kidding? The Japs will kill us on a labor course.
Okay, fine. Then let's just say they're widgets.
What's a widget?
It's a fictional product. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Tell that to the bank, you know.
Take it easy. It's the first day, you know.
On the board, you will see a cost analysis for construction of a 30,000 square foot facility, which will encompass both factory and office space, and is fully serviced by all utilities, a railroad spur line, and a 4-bay shipping dock.
Hold it. Why build? Hey, you're better off leasing at $1.25, $1.50 a square foot. Take your down payment and put it into CDs or something else you can roll over every couple of months.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. But we'll be concentrating on finance a little later in the term. For the time being, let's just concentrate on the construction figures, shall we? You will see the final bottom line requires the factoring in of not just the material and construction costs, but also the architect's fees and the costs of land servicing.
Oh, you left out a bunch of stuff.
Oh, really? Like what, for instance?
Well, first of all, you're going to have to grease the local politicians for the sudden zoning problems that always come up. Then there's the kickbacks to the carpenters. And if you plan on using any cement in this building, I'm sure the Teamsters would like to have a little chat with you, and that'll cost you. Oh, and don't forget a little something for the building inspectors. Then there's the long-term costs, such as waste disposal. I don't know if you're familiar with who runs that business, but I assure you it's not the Boy Scouts.
That'll be quite enough, Mr. Mellon. Maybe bribes and kickbacks and mafia payoffs are how you do business. But they are not part of the legitimate business world. And they're certainly not part of anything I'm...
No,
Yeah,
but
and that's how it is.
that's exactly how it is.
Yep.
Any textbook you read about how to start a business, like starting a business for dummies or whatever, you're never going to know everything that comes up.
Yep.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, you get in there and now you're ordering diamond books.
I didn't even think about this, Jesse. You know what that video is the perfect explanation of? The difference between an influencer and an experiencer.
Exactly. To the
Well,
T.
speaking of that, this influencer and these experiencers want to say thanks to all 56 current live viewers and the 17 of you, 56, that hit that like button. If you guys can, please hit that like button.
We only love a third of you in the chat.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
now.
Yeah.
Change that.
Yeah, exactly. And it only takes a 10th of a second to hit the like button.
I will defend, hold on. I will defend part of those 2/3 because when I'm watching any show on YouTube on my big screen and it's going through like PlayStation 4 and I'm watching it up on the big screen and all I have is a little game controller, it's really hard to like go out, pick that, select that. So I'm only forgiving a handful of you guys. Some of you.
So everybody that's on a big screen with your PlayStation controller, you're excused. Right. So then you go to Diamond, right? And they're like, "Oh, cool, yeah, we'll sell you new issues." So back then. So we'll sell you new issues. So you'll place your orders today. Your first order will be in 60 days, right? Yep. Because you order 60 days out. Now you can get, back issues and all that. So the process before you get to D-Day, before you do everything, and then you start pivoting the first day of business. The first day of business. I screwed up, and this is a great story, that this guy every day while I was building my store would knock on the door. "Hey, can I come?" "No, sorry, we're not open yet." Did this for about a month. And the night before, I'm like, well, my store's set up. Why would I not bring this guy in? So this guy comes in, he goes, "I'll take this, I'll take that, I'll take this, I'll take that." He spends about $5,000, right? I don't know, right? I've been technically been selling comics, but not as a retailer. So he's like, "I'll take those 3 New Mutants 98s that you have for $40 each, and I'll take these." So he cleans me out of all my keys. So the day I open, I don't have any keys, even though I made $5,000. Everybody's like, "Do you have any book that matters in the collectible world?"
Well, and I'll go one step beyond that.
Sure.
You never know who's going to knock on your door because my first store 19 and a half years ago, we had a 1.5 month build out time. And so this is pre-opening. So the landlord said, when we negotiated the lease, we negotiated it mid-February, or we saw it end of January. We negotiated for 2 weeks. I signed the lease February 14th or 15th. And so I had a month and a half of what they call build out time. Free rent until the day you want to open. So I had that. You're kind of setting a 45-day window to do your full build out, all of your fixtures, all of your shelves, stock it with product, and be ready to open April 1st. So somewhere around, well, and the first thing I do, and most people do, is you tape up your windows. Coming soon, Wonder World Comics, because it takes time to build those big signs that go on the side of your building. Those have to be approved by the city.
Yeah, by the city. Yep.
Okay. Then you find out that your city has a bird spike ordinance, but I built a box with a slanted top on it so that birds couldn't nest at all. And I had to go 3 rounds with the building inspector because he's sitting there going, nope, we have a bird. Every sign has to have bird spikes. And I'm like, sir, you mean like the bird spikes above the Coney Island down here that has 20 bird nests in it? Or the nail salon that has about 5 nests in it and bird poop all over the floor? And we put this sign up 2 months ago and there's not a single bird anywhere near my sign. Okay, well, we'll give you a ordinance pass on this one. So there's still a million things, but so we taped up the windows. Coming soon, Wonder World Comics, toys, games, blah blah blah. I get a knock on the door. Little did I know it, but there was a family of cousins and brothers that lived 2 blocks away from me, and they knew Magic the Gathering backwards and forwards, and they knew Yu-Gi-Oh backwards and forwards. And these kids are like, hey, are you guys hiring? I'm like, yeah, give me a resume. Well, first, back then, I actually had applications. And then I realized the scam of I can continue to get unemployment if I just pick up an application and never bring it back.
Yeah.
So then I demanded resumes after about a year and a half of that bullshit. That's another freebie for free cornbread out there. Don't do applications. Ask for resumes because it gets you a better class of employee. Right. But these three kids worked for me for about 5 or 6 years, processing all my Magic, processing all my Yu-Gi-Oh, organizing the tournaments. They knew it backwards and forwards. If I had been like, nope, sorry, I'm not talking to anybody while I'm building, I would have not had probably the 3 key employees for 5 solid first year that I had for that particular genre. And they had a little bit of love of comics, but then they turned into be my best customers for comic books.
Yeah.
Yep. You never know.
What's funny is I had a guy come in who was trying to collect that. And so I knew he just wanted to get an application so he'd go get his money from the government. So I said, take a seat. So I interviewed him for 30 minutes. And then at the end, I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and hire you. And you don't want to see someone run out of the door saying, I don't even need the application. And on top of that, the biggest thing I forgot is you do all this, and guess who walks into the door? The fire marshal. Right? Oh, this store looks great. Now great. Let me tell you everything that you got to change before you can open the store.
Yep.
Your store. Right? And so that's just pre. So mentally, you need to be prepared 90 days before in any business you're doing. Now, we're talking about brick and mortar, folks. Obviously, the new way to sell, you're not working that way. I'm in a 100-square-foot studio, right? So it's not like I had to do a lot of work to do this and go through a fire marshal. So you get to the day, and that's the day where, we had been talking about pivoting, and the show is about pivoting. But what happens is you technically become the heel in the comic book industry because you're pivoting in directions that might not make you look like you're on the same boat with everybody, right? You're kind of going against the grain. So people look at you not as a innovator. They kind of look at you as someone that it's not really going the way that we did it. And so what you have to choose is, do you want to stay with that old we, or are you then create the new we, right? And the new we is pivoting. And that's what this show is about in all standards, from a retailer to a seller to a distributor to a publisher and to a warehouser, right? And everybody is pivoting in a direction that is going faster than we can actually keep up with, And so, Brian, we sent you the news on Diamond.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is pretty crazy. For those of you guys that don't know, Diamond is closing one of their warehouses in Plattsburgh, New York.
And honestly, Plattsburgh was usually the most efficient one out of all of it.
Yeah.
And that staff up there knew what they were doing. As I've been told multiple times, the staff down in what's the town in Kentucky that they're across the. What's the big warehouse for Diamond?
Oh, that is it's in the article.
Okay.
Mississippi.
It's the one they're keeping, Olive Branch.
Yeah,
Olive Branch.
Yeah. So Olive Branch, they can't staff it. They actually hire temps to come in. And actually, I was told by one of my insiders at that warehouse back in the day, they would hire anybody, any warm body to pack our books. And of course, this was much contention for me with Diamond. But one time they hired 2 rival gangs through 2 different temp agencies. and they actually had a gang feud in the warehouse.
Yeah.
Well,
And I'm
let's
like,
talk
what?
about that, because that's one of the hardest things to do is hiring. You got to realize that it takes time to hire somebody, the right people for the right job. Right. You're going to go through a lot of people before you find the right person, and sometimes the right person finds a better job. So you're going to have to go through that multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep in mind, there's a difference from hiring for retail and hiring for warehousing. Completely different interviews, right? An interview for warehousing is, what limitations do you have? Can you pick up a box?
Right.
Can you bend your knees? Have you ever been hurt on a job before? I had talked about the most dangerous thing in a warehouse is rubber bands. Rubber bands get dropped on the floor, people slip on them, right? And so you're hiring differently than a retailer, because that warehouser technically isn't talking to customers, right? And so warehouse hiring is a big challenge, because you're interviewing a massive amount of people who technically are just saying, I want to make $16 an hour to do XYZ. That's it. And so how do you manage that with a company that is this big? So when you see a company who says, listen, we're going to take 2 warehouses, we're then bring them together, so we're losing that, our employees over here to bring, now we're going to take our employees at Olive Branch, and now they got to technically do 2 jobs of a warehouse. How many people do you hire at that point?
Does Jesse, I know you remember this, but Brian, I don't know if you were paying attention back then. They used to have a senior vice president in charge of inventory, and it was a lady, and I can't remember her name, but she quit, I want to say 2016 or 2017. And in her resignation letter that was covered by Rich Johnson at Bleeding Cool, she said, fundamental differences in the way they want to run this operation. Do you remember that, Jesse?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
And I have yet to hear who replaced her. I've never heard anything about, I mean, we had the new boxes that were crush proof,
sure,
which I still think are garbage. I've yet to hear any innovation, and I've yet to see Diamond pivot in regards to the problems that they've had in their warehouses. Right. I mean, this is a pivot to save money and consolidate and centralize. That's fine. They built that warehouse from scratch. That's all Diamond's warehouse.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember they bragged about the size of the fan, the ventilation fans.
Sure.
It's like the size of an airplane, apparently.
Yeah.
So, they're so proud of that warehouse. I understand why they probably closed Plattsburgh and want to centralize everything to that warehouse.
Right.
But that warehouse has its problems. It has staffing issues. I'm not going to trash. I've been told that the worker pool is not a worker pool that they feel comfortable enough hiring full time. That's why they use temps, which I think is just, it's probably a statement of, Southern Kentucky, Northern
It could
Mississippi.
be the state they're in. There's
Right.
It's depending on the state. Yeah.
Right. If the educational base is really low, then maybe you should have chose a better, more educated base to build out of. But that's beside the point.
Right.
At a certain point, maybe they should sell that one and centralize to a better area where they're not going to beat the shit out of the comic books every week.
Yeah, I think, again, if whenever you do something like this, it's how you word it. So if you read the whole article, you realize they have a structured plan in play. And the reason why they did it is it gives them a big advantage of what they're doing. Again, we can talk about all we want, but sales per square foot goes the same with warehousing. If you have 30,000 square feet that you aren't using, you're losing money, right?
Yeah.
Because not only are you doing that, you have your air conditioner on. You have to have insurance for that 30,000 extra feet, right? And so that comes all into play. So as we see this happen and you say, okay, well, if we go 7 years ago, they have Marvel, DC, Image, and all these other people in there, so it makes sense. Now what they're doing is saying today, this is who we have, this is what we're going to add. And so by leaving here and going everything in this area gives us a better chance to be more successful. And as this goes up the corporate line and investors and shareholders are all making these decisions, at the end of the day, it's going to be, does it make sense? And does this get us through the next 10 years? Not next year, the next 10 years.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the next 10 years because New York Comic Con happened this weekend, and it was very interesting because for the 90% of the people that I talked to that were there, that saw what was going on, it was nothing but positivity. Like the excitement was there for comics that are coming out that are good reads, right? Like that being the stuff that Absolute DC is going through. The excitement for the variant craze was nuts because there was 600 plus variants at this thing, which is crazy to me. So people were excited for variants again. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. I don't know what it is, but it's excitement in the comics world, which is always a good thing, ultimately, in my opinion. The news of what's coming down the pipe from, some of the great people like Todd McFarlane, who talked at the Retailer Summit, was very interesting. People were super excited to hear from those people. And then at the same time, you had this weird thing that was going on where through live selling platforms, this beyond the con thing that was happening through Whatnot and eBay Live, where people who were not at the con were breaking records on sales. Rob Liefeld went on eBay Live and broke records for eBay Live, numbers, which was super crazy to me. Like, that's freaking awesome. He wasn't even at the con. And so it's like, it's showing us this change that is happening in the world of comic book retailers and the industry and the things that are happening.
I'll do one more shout out. So as I think we talked about it on the show here, Phil from Vintage, is it Vintage
Phil Lee?
Comics?
Yeah, Vintage Comics and Toys. Yep.
Yeah, Vintage Comics and Toys. So he came up to visit me and we were talking, and everybody knows you can't pay me to work. I'm really done with shows. I'll do them if I want to support the promoter or a friend or something like that. But you can't get me to do a New York City Comic Con. You know, it's just too
crazy,
too grueling, too pricey, everything.
Yeah.
So Phil announced, I'm not doing New York City Comic Con. And he had a monster booth 2 years ago and last year. Mighty MLV was broadcasting live out of his booth 2 years ago. So it was huge. And he made that decision to take that money that he would have spent, roughly 10 G's, on the booth and the hotel and the labor and all of that, and said, I'm just going to take that 10 G's and drive around the Midwest and hit every comic shop and buy inventory. It's the smartest decision ever.
For him.
For him.
Yeah.
For him.
Yeah. And so it's kind of funny because what Liefeld proved was you can have a convention 365 days a year if you have good product, if you have a good personality, if you have a little bit of carnival carny in you, verse, right? So you really don't need to be at New York Comic Con. And so that was the point Bryan was making, that Rob had the most viewers against anybody else, and he wasn't at the con. But what the con is, you got to remember, let's just say that what's the attendance? 200,000, 200,
Oh,
whatever.
supposedly this year, that's the other crazy thing about this year. They said it was like more packed than a lot of people have seen in, years, which
Right.
is understandable because of the pandemic. But I mean, they were acting like there was too many people.
Right. So let's just say it's 200,000 people, 250,000 people. But then you say, how many people watched live streams? Right? So that show that had 250,000 people now is being dwarfed by another 250,000 people watching live stream. Those 250,000 people that were watching live stream, right, have bigger budgets. Why? They didn't have to get the hotel room. They didn't have to get a plane ride. So that money that they save allows them to buy more.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say it's all exciting and all this and that, it's also exciting from across the nation, because now you could say, man, I can't go to New York Comic Con. Well, actually you can. And guess what? You don't have to wait in line for 2 hours to get a signature from Todd McFarlane.
Yep. You
can win something.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even to some extent, and I usually say this, there are very few exceptions to this. So, chat, feel free to call me out if you can think of something. There's very few things that you can buy at San Diego or New York that the money you save by not going, you couldn't buy yourself 5 minutes after it released. Think about even the Momoko Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
What was that selling for? $20 a piece? $40 a piece?
So the Momoko spawns were $40 unsigned and signed by McFarlane $60.
Okay, great deal.
Fucking A.
What's it selling for?
A lot. They're selling for
$450, $500?
Yeah, probably, yeah. They got as much as as high as 600, I think, or 500, I think.
But just think. Okay, let's just say it's $450, and let's just say it's $50.
Yeah.
The $400 that you're paying to not be there is the plane ticket to get to New York.
Yeah.
$50 Uber ride to your hotel. The minimum $400 a night, which I'd heard was standard for a shitbag hotel.
Yep.
Okay. You spend all of that money, and then some asshole behind you gets in a fist fight with you and scares off Peach Momoko.
Well, she wasn't there, but
right, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, here's
just stay at home and buy it. You saved a bunch of money, and now you can pay $450 for it, and you didn't have to get in a line and get into an altercation and blah blah blah.
But you couldn't stay home and buy that.
Yeah, you could, because guess what? Immediately, one of those guys in that line sold it on eBay.
Yeah, but for $450.
Yes, and you saved $5,000 not going to New York.
I got you. Yeah.
And so that was
that's what I'm saying. That's an opportunity cost.
Yeah, and
stay
so
home, keep your money, and buy the individual things you want, and not get into fist fights and not get robbed in New York.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so when you look at that, the question above was who can go to a retailer summit? Again, at the beginning of the show, I said we have gone from retailers to sellers. So sellers are now anybody that sells in the industry, no matter where you sell, whatnot, eBay, Amazon, at a swap meet, at a store, at a brick and mortar.
Yeah, but I don't think it just anybody can get into the retailer event because
if
those books.
If they have a platform that allows them to buy from whoever's summit that is, then they can get in. So if you're a live streamer through Diamond, which you can get an account now, you don't have to have a brick and mortar. You can be a live streamer and buy through Diamond. That allows you to get to the Diamond Summit.
You have to have a Diamond account in order to get into it. Yes.
Right. You have to have a Diamond account, a Lunar account, a Penguin account.
Yes.
X, Y, Z.
So Dennis and Jesse are talking about Matrix Comics, who said, "Can you guys please talk about how retailer summit meetings like the one at NYCC work? It seems like anyone can be a retailer and get into the room for exclusive books. Didn't seem level, but I don't know. You can't get in unless you're on some type of list, I believe, which is that. Right. Yes. So it's not just anybody that can get into that room.
Well, there's other perks that come along with that. Professional badge. Usually Diamond will negotiate, or Diamond or whoever will negotiate free passes for the people that they invite. It's basically a bribe to get people to come to their show so that they can in turn shake down the publishers to pay Diamond for time on the stage and to pass out free books for them to make the big splashes. So it's a big circular firing squad. So they up the ante, like, hey, you want to come to New York? Get a hold of us, sign up for it, and we'll have a pass for you and one of your helpers. Yeah. And then when you get there, you have to sit through the whole presentation before you get the variants at the end. Right. And then they charge the publisher $25,000 to talk to these captive audiences.
Wow.
Of people with Diamond accounts.
Captive audiences, but a group of people in the room, right? Most of the people, if you go to a summit, listen, I've gone to hundreds of summits. Dennis has gone to hundreds of summits. Me and Dennis have sat at the same table, and we know the only thing people are thinking is, I hope I get 5 or 6 or 7 of the summit exclusives, because then I can make X, Y, Z, and that will pay for my room.
Yeah.
And I tell you
Meanwhile, people like Jesse and I are like, how
Dennis.
can I get that publisher off to the side and tell him what I really think and what I think he needs to be doing to make me more money? That's the small little subcircle of people who don't give a shit about the variant.
Right. And the one thing you want to be, you don't want to be the last publisher at the summit, because that's when everybody already starts getting in line. You are non-existent, right?
Yep.
The 5 people that are listening to, they're already buying.
Which is funny, because the only time I've seen this, the year that Boom Studios got bought by Diamond's competitor, Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
They shoved Boom at the end of the meeting, and everyone got up and barely listened to Boom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they had a great format at one point where you went in groups. You got in groups of 20, and you went to listen to Boom. Then you went to go listen to this guy. So instead of being in this big room saying, I really don't care about this, you kind of went through this gambit. And it was good because it was more intimate. You could walk up to a Ross Ritchie and a Phillip to shake their hands and do all this stuff. And then you just go on to the next guy and the next guy. And then you choose if you want to go to that dark horse pitch or not, right? And I thought that was a good time back in the day. Of course, it's about bonding and shaking hands and getting to know everybody. I think the tough part is if you are a live streamer and you go to a summit that has a lot of retailers, it becomes a yin and yang type atmosphere, right? Hey, you're sitting at this table. So what store do you own? Oh, I own what were you out of?
And
Oh,
I'll
man.
tell you this, and
Yeah.
I've said it a million times on this show, the best relationships that I ever made from retailer summits were with other retailers.
Yep.
Because that's who I share stuff in common with. It's
Right.
I could care less that you sold, Dark Horse Comics airtime to have it's my attention. I care about meeting these other guys that have ideas that I can take and move to mine. And
Yep.
they don't want us having that in between time. They want us, like I said, a captive audience. Jesse will disagree with me,
Yep.
but they want us as a captive audience because that's the way they sold it to the publisher
Right.
that wants to talk at us.
Sure, exactly.
And I came to talk to the guys at my table.
Right.
I came
Well,
to
look-
talk to the guys behind my table.
Look how many years they allowed retailers to talk to the public.
Yeah.
Right. 2 years, and they say, "Oh no, we can't do this." Right. We can't have Jesse up on stage saying do this or do that, or Dennis on stage doing this or that. I always tell this funny story when I won best. I forgot what it was.
Best Practices Award
Yeah, one of the best practices
at
award.
Chicago.
Yeah, and I think it was customer service, right?
Yeah.
And they said, "Where did you come up with this idea that you would have a membership card that you would get points? Not only did you get points, then you could use those points to get discounts." And I'm standing there trying to answer this question saying, are we this drastic? So I actually asked the guy that asked me the question, do you have a credit card on you, right? And he's like, yeah, I got my American Airlines credit card. I go, well, don't you get points off that? So I didn't create this, but in the comic book world, it was very drastic. It's a very drastic industry. So until someone comes out and actually says, oh my gosh, we do this XYZ, people are like, whoa, that's crazy. But we have to live with that. And that's why you have to pivot accordingly to understand that if you pivot too far, too fast, people can't go with you because they won't understand what you're doing. 9 years ago, when I was one of the first 2 people ever to live stream for the comic book world, this was, people didn't understand what I was doing. They couldn't fathom what I was doing. Now look where we're at. But so this industry pivots, Diamond pivots, they do something that is good for their business in their mind. How people read it and how people react to it, that's on them. How Lunar and how Penguin reacts to it, they need to know, they need to continue to sell books.
Yeah.
So something very interesting that did happen at this con, and I want to get your guys' take on this, is there was a fight that broke out over the said Peach Momoko Todd McFarlane signed book that was selling for $60. And supposedly what we're hearing now, the fight was between a vendor and a vendor and a con goer, because only NYCC attendees were given the chance to purchase the variant. The seller, who was Spectral Comics, would not allow anybody that had a pass other than an attendee pass to buy the book. And a vendor supposedly placed a attendee pass around their neck trying to get it over on one, and an attendee noticed it, and it sounds like there was a vendors and retailers fight against one another because they want to get their hands on copies to sell. So I don't know what we're continuing to hear these crazy
Right, but here's my point to that is they allowed people to buy what, 2 or 3 or 4 of these?
3 each. Yeah.
3 each. If you honestly don't want people reselling your product, you don't sell 3 each.
Yep, one a piece.
So you've already incentivized the waiting in line to get 3 of these. Nobody needs 3. It's an everlasting gobstopper. Don't be greedy. Make it 1 a piece. Have your piles ready. If you want McFarlane to sign it, go wait in this line. If you want this, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that you put these 3 each, and this happened to me, guys. And I'll tell this story real quick. My daughter loves Monster High dolls. And every year at San Diego, they would have a Monster High San Diego exclusive. Now, most of the time, I could just go through line and blah, blah, blah. But this one year, I happened to be in there early. So I went over and got in line. And they said, oh, I'm sorry, you have a retailer pass. Not an exhibitor pass, but a retailer pass. And they said, you're not allowed to buy this because you're a retailer.
Yep.
And I had filled out my little form. I only wanted one, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, behind me, checking out while I'm arguing with this woman that I just want one. I'm not reselling this. This is for my daughter. The family of 4, 2 adults, 1 2-year-old, and 1 kid in a stroller, bought literally 24 of them. 6 for each one of the 4 people with an attendee pass around their neck. And I'm like, so they can buy 24 that they're clearly not going to consume all 24 of these, but I can't buy one. Yes, because we don't like that badge around your neck.
Right.
F you for that. That's bullshit.
Hey, Brian, can you go into...
This is real quick. This is from Chucky, who says that this is his video standing in line at the Spectral booth. These are all the people that are trying to get that book. I mean, look at it. I mean, it goes all the way back, and it goes, and this is Spectral right here. I mean, they're all trying to get it from this, like, unbelievable, man. Like how crazy this is.
Can you go to Unfiltered?
Yeah. 1 sec.
Okay.
Yo, let's do this.
Most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I think we need a part where it's called break the code, right? So we're then break the code here a little bit, and I'm sure I'll get hate mails in the morning and all that. If you're a retailer, and Dennis, I understand yours is a little bit different, right? Different company or different type of brand. But if you're a retailer waiting in line for something, you don't understand how conventions work. You should go outside right now and kick your own freaking ass. For
Brian, what did I tell you?
Yes.
San Diego.
Yes.
Exactly that. There is nothing worth waiting an hour in line for at San Diego.
Yep.
Because that hour can be spent doing a million other things that are going to benefit you in different ways.
Right. But here's the thing, Dennis, and this is why people are then get bitchy on this is what we do an hour before the show opens when we're walking around.
Oh, I get that guy undivided attention because the people haven't come in yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over and
hey, buddy, what you got? Oh, how many can I get right now? You don't have to give me a discount. But how many can I get? Can I get 50? Can I get 40? Obviously, you go high numbers to get the 10 or 20. And so if you took a video of San Diego Comic-Con and you took a picture of the DC booth an hour before it opened and saw how long that line is of retailers waiting to be open, it does not matter how many staff walk over and say, you can't do that. Why? Because we take 2 steps away and he turns the corner, we get back in line.
Yep.
So if you're a retailer and you're new, I get it. But your job all year is to become friends with the person running that line at San Diego Con, at New York Comic Con. So the second they see you.
And I'll tell you, there's a handful of different variants that I wanted. And when I would see the person, I'd be like, hey, I don't want to buy them right now because I don't want to carry them around all day. Can you just put 3 off to the side for me and I'll come back and pick them up later? Yeah. I'm not going to wait in a line for 2 hours. And they're like, yeah, no problem, Dennis, because they know me.
Sure.
And that's it's influencer privilege or whatever.
I was just about to say, you guys better get ready because the comments are going to flood this show of being like, well, then you guys are the assholes that's causing all this,
Right. But here's the thing. We have a relationship with that publisher.
Yep.
That publisher knows what we do the other 360 days out of the year.
Sure. Exactly.
Okay. So if they know putting 3 copies of that in my hand, and Dennis is going to keep one, and I'm going to sell one in my store, and I'm going to talk it up when I'm doing this or that or the other thing. That is, I guess, what the influencer privilege is, because they know what that book means in our hands.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, if you want to call it privilege, you can call it all you want. If I'm in line at DC and I'm getting my 20 books that I'm spending $400 on when I've already spent $600,000 with you during the year, listen, that's the reason. And so as a retailer, you have to be smart. And if you're standing in line for that peach book, and it's $60, and you're then make $400, and you're then make $340. But you can walk around to 10 tables and bind a whole bunch of exclusives or have some pre-exclusives done, and you're then make about $4 or $5 grand. You might want to do that, right? And so that's the interesting about it. When I do see, I have no problem with customers standing in line and all that. But if you're a retailer and you're bitching about it, you don't know how this system works, and you need to get into that system to understand that you're never going to be successful. And if you think getting 3 of these is then pay for your trip, you're nuts. You would make more money if you bought it for $300 online and sold it for $400 and made $100 than you would standing in line for 3 copies at $60, but the trip costs you $4 grand.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not the only thing that they're there for. That's the other thing that I think people need to understand. We're not totally just dog shitting on this whole thing. We're talking about retailers here. We're talking about the industry game. We're not talking about the fans.
But there is an element, Brian, and I've been talking about this for almost a decade, actually 2 decades plus. It's what I call the S&Ms of fandom. It's the guy who waits in line for a year to see Star Wars Episode 1 in the first theater at 12:01 on opening day, and I walk in at 12 o'clock and go, what's the next showing? 12:05. All right, I'll buy 1 ticket. George Lucas wants those people to wait in that line for a year. The media wants people to wait in line for the year. The theater wants people to wait in line for a year. There's no reason to wait in line for a year to watch a movie that I walked up the second the movie opened and bought a ticket for. Yeah, you get the camaraderie. Yeah, you get to bathe in line. But that has extrapolated itself into that mess that you just showed, Brian. Okay. It would have been real easy for them to print out, like, how many did they make? 500, 1,000 of those?
I think it was 1,000, but I could be wrong.
So let's just,
I think it was 1,000. It was 1,000. It was 500 unsigned, 500 signed.
Okay. The way Dennis would have broken that down to make everything fair and amicable and reasonable, I would have printed out X amount of tickets, 500 unsigned, 500 signed. And then I would have said, and this is what I said with J. Scott Campbell's booth at San Diego. And then I would have said, okay, giant line, you do not have to wait in the show. Here's the first 100 of you are going to get this ticket. You pick one of these 2 tickets, and you're going to get one of them. Boom, 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 boom. And on each one of those tickets is 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock to... And I would have only handed out 333 tickets on the first day.
You know what that is? 300. That's the George Perez way of selling comic books.
Guess what? That man was a fucking genius.
Yes,
and
he was.
Saint.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what we are missing, because he didn't want everybody to wait in his freaking line. He wanted you to go out and enjoy the convention.
Right.
The first time I had Stan Lee at my show in 2010, Detroit Fan Fair, we did exactly that system. And it was the most smooth system. And people were coming up to me for the rest of the weekend going, thank you so much. I got to see this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, instead of waiting in a line all day to get my 1 Stan Lee signature.
Right. Well, J. Scott Campbell didn't care about any of that because he sold everything he brought on Thursday again anyway. So
right.
I get it, but it's not fair to people who can only afford to come one day,
Right.
and that one day is Sunday.
And the one point that I want to go back on, when I started this show, I said we have changed from retailers to now we're all sellers. And someone had mentioned a whole bunch of names of resellers, and someone else mentioned a name of resellers. They're not retailers. So they're not spending $500,000 a year with Lunar, Diamond, and Penguin. So what I'm saying is if you're spending that much, then yes, you should be able to work something and say, listen, I can't stand in line. You look at my account, I'm just asking for 5.
Well, and that's why I told Funko to.
But these other
Funko
people,
off.
yeah, but the other people, that's the difference. If they go and they get 10 copies and they don't spend anything with that retailer all year, then that I get that. That part I understand. So I'm not saying, oh, let's be an asshole and everybody's then go and get the product before the show opens. That's for a specific small group of retailers who have built relationships throughout the year, has spent, listen, when my bill, and Dennis knows this, Brian knows this, my bill with Diamond every week was $25,000 a week. And that was a low week for me. So listen, I have to find ways to not spend my time being in lines. But the other people, I understand why people get mad at the prices that they do charge and that. So yes, I get that.
I'll give you 2 perfect examples.
Yep.
I was at Star Wars. Well, no, the first one was Funko. I went up to Funko naively. I was spending at that time $15,000, $20,000 a year on Funkos. That it was big, it was cute, everybody loved them. I walked up to Funko's booth midday with no line at San Diego, and they're like, "Oh, you're a retailer. You're not allowed in this line." I'm like, "You have things on the back wall." Yeah, these are all for people who are attendees and who got a ticket. I'm like, so I'm not allowed to buy anything from your booth. You can come back on Sunday. If anything's left, you can buy then. Okay. I immediately went back and said, if my money's no good one weekend out of the year, you're not getting my money the other 360 days. And I stopped selling Funkos forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the second example of that was, and it was kind of a massive blow up, Star Wars Celebration 2018 in Florida. And I go to the booth of Gentle Giant.
Yeah.
And they had some exclusive that went along with all the stuff. I was carrying those big 12-inch Star Wars figures.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys know what I was carrying them in my store, I bought every single one of them. And I'm waiting in line, and the girl behind me is like, "Oh, I'm only getting the statues." I'm like, "Oh, will you buy me an extra one of these? Because I have 2 customers that buy every single one of these, and it was the little bug-eyed monster from the Death Star trash compactor." She's like, "Yeah, sure. Just give me the money, and I'll buy that one for you." So she gets up. She actually gets ahead of me because of the way they split the line, and she buys it and hands it to me. And while I'm literally paying for my personal one, and the guy behind the counter is like, "Dennis, you know you're only allowed one of these." I have no idea who this fucking guy is, but he knew who I was. And he literally took the other thing took the second one out of my hand because the woman had handed me one. And I'm like, "Do I know you?" "Yeah, I know you, Dennis. That's all that matters. You're trying to circumvent our system." So she's allowed to buy one, and I'm allowed to buy one. I'm not buying any of your other statue stuff. I'm buying this because I carry your product for the last 3 years of this 12-inch Star Wars line. He goes, "Yep, that's it, Dennis." I go, "Okay." I took a picture of him. Then I found out who he was. I went into Diamond's system. I sent a long email saying, "I would like a list of everything that I have on pre-order for Gentle Giant Studios." They send me the list, and I was like, "I will cancel every single one of these right now. Thank you."
Yep.
It came out to be $50,000 worth of Gentle Giant equipment. Long story short, to the end of this story, 1 year later, Gentle Giant went out of business.
Yep.
Diamond Comics bought them. And that asshole, plus all of the other assholes that backed him up that day, all lost their jobs.
Yep. if Big Clutch was on, this is a epic story. So Big Clutch used to, obviously Sean was the head over at Skybound Walking Dead at San Diego. And back in the day, if you don't know me, I was buying so much stuff back in the day. I would go in the morning to San Diego, buy all my stuff, fill up my truck, drive back to the store in Phoenix, sleep for 2 hours, go back the next day, drive back and forth 5 days a week. That's how much stuff I was buying. So anyways, Big Clutch is doing this order, and it's exactly $13,000. And I go, hey, hold on 1 second, and then go across the way here. So while you're paying this on your computer, hold on 1 second. So I walk over, and the ladies in the front, and for the company, and I say, can I get 10 each of those exclusives? Jesse, I'm only giving you 2 books. Pick 2 books that you want, and you'll get $2. I go, well, I want 10 bucks each. You're not sold out. I only want 10 each. Here's your $2. I said, fine, I'll take a 2 exclusive and I'll take an XYZ exclusive. But if you can bring that bill over to where I'm going to be with Sean real fast. So Sean brings over his computer and says, and I go, Sean, hold on 1 second. So the girl comes over. Dennis, you know who this is. I'll tell you after the show.
Oh, and I know who it is already. I can already tell you.
She goes, oh, I got your $2. It's $20. I go, hold on 1 second. Sean, how much is my bill I got paid for here? Oh, that's $13,000. Okay, hold on 1 second with your $20. So I signed the $13,000 and I say, you know what? You can keep your $2. I'm never buying from your company ever again. Right. And so how we do it, and Sean loved it because Sean didn't like this lady either. So, but we speak with our wallets. And at the end of the day, you have to go in with your brand and what your brand has established as a business and how important you are to that business beyond the con. And if you can do that, then you're in good shape. But if you walk up to someone and you have spent $100,000 with them and they don't know who you are, then you got to introduce yourself to them. And you got to create that one-on-one relationship because obviously the dollar amount you're spending does not connect with them.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is that rules are rules, but there's exceptions to the rules.
Right.
And I'm not saying every retailer should go up there and throw their weight around like Jesse and I.
Right.
But the thing is, I don't buy just anything. I only spend my money with people I support and support retail as well as online, etc. You've seen we brought all of the people in here that we support. They've had years of experience with us buying from their companies. But sometimes they put rules in place. Like, let's just say it was an Image exclusive.
But Dennis, hold on 1 second. Most of the time, it's not rules. Most of the time, it's that guy being an asshole.
Yeah,
or that
petty tyrants.
Being an asshole.
Petty tyrants.
Exactly.
And that's the thing is okay, you have to decide right now. Hold on a second. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen there. You have to decide right now if you know the business that I do with your company yearly, and this one petty tyrant who you put in charge of handing out the exclusives is worth that business relationship. It's that simple. And you know what? I'm stubborn enough to never buy a Funko again. I'm stubborn enough to not buy a single Gentle Giant thing until Diamond purchased them.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'll spend my money with all of the other people who want to do business with me.
Yeah. I thought it was very interesting. I'm going to read somebody who was at the con and was at this event. And I just thought this was interesting. This person said, only NYCC attendees were given access to purchase the Spawn Peach Momoko variant, but not vendors. So, of course, vendors got regular passes and placed them around their neck to act like regular attendees to get their hands on them. Fans don't fight with one another. Vendors and retailers fight against one another because they want to get their hands on copies to sell. But for us fans, it's a mere chance of getting a comic that we actually care about. Including 50 to 100 VIPs that were already early, I was placed 100 to 190 on the line when it was mayhem, barely thinking of having a slight chance of getting a copy since the end of the line was right behind me when closing off the line. So was it fair for actual fans to wait outside in the cold for hours and merely have a chance at getting a copy? This was my very first Todd McFarlane signed comic with my favorite artist, Peach Momoko, and I went through hell just to get it, only for vendors/retailers to ruin it. I was able to get mine, but the sad part was that I was in the first 30 to 40 people outside, lining up at 5 a.m. on Friday. Still in the first 30 when they were lining up down at 8 a.m. downstairs in the queue room. And as soon as it was 10 a.m., we started to head upstairs, and there was already 100 to 200 people in the line.
Is that Mel in there? You can call me. Oh, that you can. Okay, that's not Mel V. I thought it said Mel V.
No.
Yeah,
it wasn't that cold, is what the chat's saying.
Yeah. Well, he could be from Arizona, right? So
that's true.
It might be cold. So, the one thing. Listen, we're talking as retailers. We're not talking as
of course, yes.
And so we have to speak in reality. And so I forgot who it was that said we're not important as the one person buying the book. That could be true. But as a business person, I'm going to go there to advance my business and my brand. So if you're saying that's wrong to do that, that's not how it works in our world.
I just shoot back at that guy. Yeah. Why do you need 3? If you're just there for the love of Peach.
Well, he didn't say he needed 3. He just wanted 1.
Okay,
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But did he buy 3 if he had the chance?
I don't know, but
would he have bought 3?
That's immaterial. He's saying that what he is saying, and this is again, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Like, there is this thing that happens where, hey, this is a fan that went to this con because they wanted to get this book, and they go into the get it, and there's already 200 retailers / vendors in line to get that book, and now he might not get that book, and it turns into a fucking frenzy. And it's not necessarily those retailers who were there earlier. It's the whole situation. It's allowing people to buy 3 at a time. It should just be 1 at a time. Doing the way the line was set up was so ridiculous. Right. There was no line. It was just people running to the thing, and it just a free for all. And then Jesse, you should have seen this thing. It was so monster. But here's the problem. That same thing has been happening for the last 3 years at every major con. How come they haven't fixed this yet?
Well, here's the thing. You can talk about a baseball card convention, Cabbage Patch Girl convention.
No, Jesse, let me pause you for 1 second. They did the same thing at the Reed Pop Sports Expo show at Javits, and Neo Carton Comics was there, and he's like, oh, the line started for this special, Brian probably knows what it is, special box of Chrome cards. But Neo's like, you could literally go in line 3 hours later and get the one box that everybody else was allowed to buy per day.
Yeah, it's different at the cards. Yeah, it's different at the card places. It's weird. It's only at these comic conventions, at least that I've seen, where it's so fucking crazy. It's weird.
Right. Again, I look at it a little bit differently. How many exclusives did you say there were?
Over 600, I think.
Hold on 1 second.
Well, and I'll fill in on Jesse here for a second because the chat's jumping all over this.
Yeah.
If you want this, and what was the name of this publisher who got this huge exclusive? Was this
Spectral?
Saltzman's?
No, not Trinity. This is Spectral.
Spectral. Oh, whoever Spectral is, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, Spectral Comics.
Spectral should have. This is something Spectral should have foreseen. And like I said, I've never seen them before. I think this first and foremost goes to them. Reed should have fixed this second. Like, guys, you're not doing this. I'm shutting this booth down until you figure out a way to make one line, process all these people fairly, and we're not going to have fights. But apparently every day it was the exact same. So nobody stepped in from Spectral. Nobody stepped in from Reed.
So supposedly,
and honestly, hold on. And honestly, last but not least, Todd should have been like, what the fuck, dude? I gave you this exclusive. This is the shit show you're putting my name on? Because as Jesse and I always say, this is on Todd's brand as well.
Right. So supposedly they're saying that Spectral was just the face for it. This was all a Todd McFarlane production release. But why would he give his brand to somebody else to run like that? It doesn't make sense.
So my point was, before my power was going out on my computer, my point was there were 599 variants. And so we're taking this hot variant, but you had controllable things going on throughout the show. And what happens is at cons, I ran a big con, 150,000 people. You get stretched out. You get stretched out tremendously. Now, should they have pivoted the second day and created the line and said, you know what, give me your phone number, we'll then text you 10 minutes before it's your turn? Yes,
they could have gone into the lobby. You've been to New York, right, Jesse?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Brian, have you been to the New York yet? Okay. So there's a lobby right below. They could have easily put out a statement that would have been shared high and low and had a big sign that said Momoko line down here in the lobby. You can wait and you can line up here and we will send you up the escalator 10 at a time. And then you would have filed, you would have handed out those little tickets to the to the 10 people. Go up that line, take this ticket. Everybody who walked up to the booth, sorry, you have to have a ticket. The line is down in the lobby. We announced it on Twitter and Facebook.
Sure.
Boom, boom, boom. I could have fixed this in a heartbeat. You go down to Kinko's and you print out some coupons and you get a pair of scissors and you chop them up. Now you've got an official coupon. Sure, people could probably scalp the coupons. I don't know. But you've taken the pressure off of the floor. As the chat said, somebody said they saw somebody's booth that line was choking out. That's not fair to that other dealer who got his line choked out.
Not just one dealer. Try 20 dealers up and down that whole thing, because it was that whole aisle where there's probably 20 dealers on both sides was completely packed. 20 dealers down, all people in line for that.
So let me ask you this question. The question would be, on Monday, did that company come out with a statement about the weekend of their lines?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll go look, but
I
don't think so.
If they did not, that means not only did they do this with a mind of just profits only. Oh my gosh, look how many people are in line. They had no essence on how to take care of customers. And the one thing that you do when you screw up, you come out and you apologize. And if they did not come out and apologize, that tells you the mindset. Someone said they're great dudes. Well, if they're great dudes, they should have came out with an apology letter.
This is their Instagram. I just see a bunch of people. Is there any way? Let's see here.
Yeah.
So that was their post that it was existing was their only post, the last post.
Yeah. So they have a 48-hour win. Well, it is 48 hours. Usually.
We're 5 days from this incident, Jesse.
Chucky, if they're, I'm going to answer Chucky's question now. I'm then put on my corporate hat, Chucky. I'm not going to be in the comic book world right now. Because the corporate world would say, if they're representing Todd McFarlane, at that point they can respond for Todd McFarlane on the actions that happen at their table, regardless if their booth is the main focus and Todd is just the face. They still represent Todd's brand, at that
Right.
table. And when you come into terms with someone, you have to understand that you got to come out and you got to back the person's brand. And then you also have to be humble and say, hey guys, we screwed up. This is what we're then do on the next show.
And I'll tell you, I've watched this in real time.
Yeah.
So Hallmark started with San Diego and all the Star Wars celebrations, and they would have an exclusive Hallmark ornament that was only available there. And I remember seeing the first year, and it was a total shit show.
Sure.
The next year, they had little tickets.
Yeah.
Then I watched another company, Roosevelt, who makes those really badass shirts that all of mine got stolen by FedEx. Sorry, had a little flashback and trauma. And they do a thing called boarding passes. You're from this time to this time, go out, come back at that time. And all of those people have learned and evolved. But to say what Bryan said, this is the third Momoko incident at New York Comic Con. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This is the third. Like whoever the chat said, oh, they knew what they had. Okay, and they didn't prepare for this.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Chucky says that it's very interesting that Todd would trust another brand with 300 Twitter followers and 700 IG followers to take his brand and put it in their hands the way that they did. It is kind of weird for Todd to allow them to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure Haley and that whole team that is part of the McFarlane team are going to be very vigilant when they go to the next company and say, tell us what happens when the line gets out of control. How are you going to fix that?
Situational design. Perfect. Yep. Really? You're kidding me. That is the exact phrase. The second they saw that out of control line, they should have backed everybody off. They should have said, we're going to reline up everybody by the food court or whatever. We cannot be blocking all of these other vendors. It's irresponsible for us to shut down everybody else's business because we didn't come up with a plan, and put a plan in place immediately and fix this problem.
Again, what if the fire marshal was there?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know how fast that con would have been closed if the fire marshal was there? It's crazy. And so situations like this happen at cons. This is a more beyond the normal that happens at a con. And traditionally, cons itself are great. New York Comic Con is great. We're not saying don't go to this con because of this one issue, this one line. You can have fun at New York Comic Con. It's a blast. A lot of things happen at Comic Con. Just walking around, you don't even have to buy anything to have fun at New York Comic Con. So I know that was the issue. I know you guys had talked about another issue that you wanted to talk about New York Comic Con. So I don't know, Dennis, if you want to start that one.
And I'll just follow up one thing here. Maybe they wanted the appearance of a feeding frenzy. No, that's exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, sure.
And they got it, but it also showed their ineptitude.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're Monday morning quarterbacking right now. I don't think that looks good for them now. It didn't look good for them then. If I was any of those dealers around there that buys all of Todd's stuff, their opinion of Todd and his organizational structure for these things has diminished because of this. And maybe that doesn't reciprocate in the next time that Todd does one of these, buy 1,000 and get an autographed book.
And listen, at the end of the day, it's up to those companies. Those companies should reach out to both companies and let them know their thoughts, and you kind of go.
Well, and that's what we're talking about right now is we have the option to make our voices heard. Sure. And our voices are saying you need to do better. Yeah. And when all the voices in the chat say we need to do better, that's when people are forced to do better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right. Was there something else that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, you know what? Let me go back real fast. J. Scott Campbell. J. Scott Campbell, if you're listening to this, I'm going to send you an email. Stop selling out the first day. Spread your stuff out. There are people that can't get to New York on Thursdays. What about the guy on Friday, Saturday, Sunday? San Diego Con, you sold out on Thursday. People that can't get to San Diego Con to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Spread your stuff out. It's okay to spread your stuff out. All right. You guys wanted to talk about pack.
Oh, the whatnot packs?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the whatnot packs. Let me tell you guys.
Okay, so let me first, can I pause you, Brian?
Of course.
I have to shout out, what's the name of the show you just did the 3-hour plus show with?
MJ Comics. MJ
Comics. So if you want a really great dissection of what this is, and you have 3 hours after, of course, you finish watching this show, go over and check out Brian's interview with MJ Comics, because I actually learned more about this than from talking with you about it yesterday from listening to that show. But go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, this is, for those of you guys that don't know, this is MJ Comics on YouTube. Great channel. Hit that
Warning,
subscribe
he's
button.
British.
He is British. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did a great interview. I told him, I go, listen, man, just so you know, anytime I do these interviews, they get long-winded. So if you have a time that you want to end, you need to let me know, because this is going to turn into a 3-hour interview either way. He's like, oh, all right, let's do it. And he's in the UK, so he's 8 hours ahead of me. So it was noon my time, and it was 8 p.m. his time, and it was like midnight by the time we ended and said
Well,
peace
it's funny
out.
that you guys said that. You and Dennis were talking so long last night. I actually had dinner. I posted 50 items while you two were talking, and didn't miss a beat. And when I ended, you guys were still talking.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, it was very interesting. The whatnot packs. I think the whatnot packs were another success for them. It's pretty unreal for them to put out put out a
Who is them? Tell me who is them.
Whatnot and Marvel. Okay. So for Whatnot and Marvel to put out this product and then have it be sold on the same weekend by 500 people and all be sold at the same time and still be a success. Usually if everybody's selling the same item, it's not going to be a success, because not every if you have 500 people selling one item, it's like, okay, I already got it, I don't need to get it. So it was just very interesting to watch. It's causing a lot of talk within the industry, just like everything that they do over there at Whatnot. It really gets dissected, and this one is continuing to get dissected. And our conversation last night that we had that was so long was basically, talking about how, this, I think that this is a test market. Everything that they did with the X-Men 97 packs and everything that they're doing with these, Year in Marvel 2024 packs, is, it's a test market for them to say, okay, now we figured out how to create them, how to package them correctly, how to make sure that they don't get destroyed in the packaging, and they're going to figure out a way to get it into comic stores, card stores, collectible stores, as soon as possible. And we'll see how that plays out.
I hit on one fact, and we're going to dissect this a little bit more. I know it. So, and I'll make my feelings heard on this, but I actually hit on an interesting fact when you were talking about this, Brian, on MJ Comics site. They hit you for $50 as the wholesaler per pack, correct?
Per box, 3 packs per box, and it was $50 buy-in.
Okay, so it's $50 your cost for 3 of these comics in an envelope.
No, 9 comics in 3 envelopes.
Oh, so you get three packs for $50.
Yes.
Okay, so you pay them that $50 and they give you 3 of these packs and you get between 100 and 130. So that's 330. So that's a huge profit for you.
Well, some people were getting 300-400
I know.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can discuss also that they control the format, and I'm going to just put a little drop of blood in the water. It'd be real easy with that format to shill bid up a bunch of these for the $300 a piece to your favorite sellers. But I'm just going to put that out there into the ether, and you can do what you like with that. I was hit with the fact that I don't think you kind of hit on it in that MJ Comics interview. They get, and what's the current whatnot percentage? Is it 12 or 13%?
I think it's 13%. Yeah, so they get a vig on everything that they're doing.
They're going to make, so they not only make that $50, but then they know that they're going to make 13% on your let's just say it's $350 that you sell them for.
Yeah. And they're double dipping on the 50.
They're double dipping.
Yeah.
What do you mean they're double dipping on the 50?
Because if you paid 50 and you sell it for 50, right? So you paid 50 and then you sell it for 50, they get 13% of that $50.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. You see what I'm saying? So that's a very interesting, and actually it might not be a general principles of accounting like kosher thing to make a product that you're telling people to sell on your platform that you can collect another 13% for.
Yeah.
There's a slight impropriety there, Brian, that I just want to make sure we're pointing out prior to
the same thing like when they tried to start a publishing company to sell comic books. Yes. Yeah.
So there's just a long history, and I think you hit on it in our discussion, which is, would you be as upset if Marvel did this themselves to retailers, which is probably obviously the full rollout plan.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Right. But it's, and it is gambling to some extent.
Of course. Yeah. It's just like cards.
So there are probably some proprieties.
But, it's kind of...
You can't call it gambling. We can call it gambling, but there's no legal... You can't call it gambling legally, because if you get into that, then you're going to be like, well, what about card collecting? It's the same fucking thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, it hits that same thing in our brain that probably hits the gambling thing, but it's also collecting too.
Right. But you got to understand, you're not only, if what you're talking about, once it goes over cross state, you're going through 16 states to California. So you're breaking the law in 16 states by bidding on something, hoping that you're then get a profit out of it.
But so, no. Hold on. Stop.
But also, Brian, but also Topps doesn't make special baseball cards for backyard breaks to only sell.
No, but they make Fanatics make special baseball cards for their stores to only sell.
Yeah, but that's their stores. They can do that for them.
So Whatnot's the same way.
Stores. Hold on. If Marvel had Marvel stores, let's just pretend that all the Disney stores still exist.
Yeah.
And Marvel made these batches for all of their Disney stores.
Mm-hmm.
Way less of an impropriety than creating it for a specialized market of what we like to call influencers. No offense, Brian.
Yeah. I don't take offense to somebody calling me an influencer at all. Yeah.
Okay. No, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it as
so let me, and this is kind of what we were talking about the other day. I know everybody keeps on saying that, you're bringing in the Whatnot thing, and that this is a problem because it was done over Whatnot. Okay. And this is what I say about it. And I'm not, again, everybody's going to say in the comments, oh, you're just sticking up for them because you made money off them. Get over that, guys. I'm over that. Like, that you're not going to get me on that. You're not going to get me a gotcha on that. I think that we need to realize that the plan isn't for this to be sold over Whatnot in the future. It's only being sold over Whatnot now as a test market. Okay. So if they feel that everything is correct with how they produce them, and that they're not going to get damaged, and they can get them in the and again, this is all none of us know what really is going on. This is all just conjecture and our ideas. But if they feel that they've figured out how to produce them correctly without causing damage in the multi-packs, and they can send them in case format to stores, next time they roll this out, this is gonna go to the stores and not be sold on Whatnot. You know what I mean? It's more beneficial for them to roll this out to those stores than it is to sell on Whatnot.
But why would they do it through Whatnot? They could do it themselves. We've seen it in the past, right?
Why would they do it through Whatnot? Because Whatnot went to Marvel and said, "Hey, we have this idea."
No, I get that part,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that if it was a great idea, they could still do it themselves and go directly to the comic book stores. In this case, it made sense to partner up with Whatnot because they're doing all the legwork, they're doing all the beta, right? Sometime, like I said, I saw one show, he didn't know how to open up the bag. He cut all the comics by cutting too far down. So not all of them are damaged because of Marvel, but we've seen this done in the past with the Harley Quinns. We've seen this with the what was the other books we were talking about? The Walking Dead.
They did a Superman Batman series. For when that movie rolled out.
Sure, exactly. So this isn't anything new. What we're kind of wondering is how long does that beta go? How many more test markets do you need? You've gone through two test markets. If you said 500 sellers were selling these, how much more test market do you do? And does Marvel going direct to retailers and cuts out Whatnot, right? How many of those Whatnot or how many of those retailers actually do live streaming?
So sorry, say that again. Sorry, say that I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is if Marvel says, hey, Whatnot, this is a great deal, we're going to sell directly to the retailers now. We're not going to sell them to you anymore. We're going to sell them directly to the retailers. But let's say the retailers don't do live streaming.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't have to do live streaming.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So your markets are being set on live streaming. There's no market in a store to be able to set the market on a price. Do you understand that? If I sell that pack in the store for $400, I'm not reporting that to anybody.
I know, but it has nothing to do with the market. What does anything have to do with the market? The
market is the price. So you're telling me if you're a retailer and you get these boxes in and Whatnot can sell these for $200, you then sell them for $50 each?
You're going to sell them for whatever you want to sell them for. There was people on Whatnot that were giving them away for free. The whole thing about them is creating the excitement out of these packs, right? So if this brings people into your store and you can sell them for whatever you want, you can say, they're selling for $200 and Whatnot, and you're only selling for $50. What are you doing that for? Well, it's bringing people into the store that weren't necessarily into the store, or people buying comics that weren't necessarily buying comics. You know what I mean?
I understand the concept. I just don't trust Whatnot to perform it to the way that I think it's fair.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. I think that's most. I'll be honest. I think that's 99% of people that have a problem with it.
Let's get it in the chat. Let's put it in the chat here. Let's have a 1 for you think this is a great idea for the industry and for the sellers, or a 0 if you think it's a bad idea. Just give us 1s and 0s in the chats, guys, and on the rewatches. Make sure you just do that in the rewatches.
Yeah, as a retailer, I'm just trying to say, if you get those packs, what do? We keystone everything. Keystone plus 5%. Keystone plus 10%.
I don't understand what that means. What does that mean?
So keystone means if you buy something for $50, you sell it for 100. That's called keystone. So if you buy it for 100, it's $200.
So, but who's making those? Who's making those decisions on what to sell it for?
Well, that's retail 101.
Well, and let me just back it up here. So, on general, a Marvel book, let's just say a $4 Marvel book, is sold to wholesale or to retailers for $2.
Right.
Now the retailer gets to choose whether they're going to sell it for that $4 on the shelf, or if they want to give their box holders a 10% discount, they're technically only wanting to make a 90% profit.
Yeah.
If the retailer up the street is doing 10 and you have to break through that, you might give 20, which means you're only making 80% profit on that book.
Right.
So the retailer has to choose, I got this for $2. And that's why when they feel the product is dead, a lot of retailers will go, okay, I've taken this box of unsold shit and I want to get $2 a piece. And at the end of the show, I'm willing to take $1 a piece for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's Keystone. So Whatnot doesn't technically use the Keystone factor, right? If you're selling it for 50 and you're
But here's my question about all this. What does any of that matter if this is just a test market and to make sure that the product works?
Live streaming. So if Marvel says,
no,
gosh,
I'm sorry, you're misunderstanding. When I say test market, I'm not saying about how it's sold and what it's sold for. I'm saying if you can just produce them. That's what I'm saying. If you can just produce them. Whatnot's showing that you can produce the packs. When you open them, they're in good enough condition that people are okay with them, and is it creating excitement, right? I think that's the only thing here. It has nothing to do with what they're sold for.
Well, I get that. But if you're then selling the retailer, it does matter what it sells for. But the point is, what happened in the late 70s and early 80s at the Gemcos, and what could you buy those packs in? Star Wars packs. You can buy 3 books in a Star Wars pack, Battlestar Galactica. So we've already successfully done 3 packs, right? So this can't be, oh my gosh, we don't know how to pack 3 books.
Not true. That's not true.
How is that not true?
Well, they have forgotten that technology.
Yes, exactly. We all know that when you polybag a comic, it's known that it's probably going to be damaged because it's of that polybag. That's a known thing. I mean, it's known. Look at Ultimate Fallout 4. It's known that that book is usually damaged because it's in a polybag. Shout out to Alex with the super chat. He says an LCS would buy in on this at 50 to sell for 200. He says, as an LCS, would you buy in on this product at 50 to sell in your store for 200?
You wouldn't be able to, Alex, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
The second let's just say 1,200 retailers buy one of these $50 boxes. Immediately, some of the retailers are going to sell them at 100 a piece, or not 100 a piece. I hate the breakdown, but it's like, what's the breakdown of 1/3 of 50? 17.
Yeah, 17,
17 a piece.
Yeah.
So most of the retailers are going to put it on their shelf at $34. And yes, the scalpers will come in and they'll buy them all up. Okay. And then the scalpers will put them on eBay and they'll want $60 a piece. And then there's a whole subgenre. But then there's going to be some retailers that take that $17 cost, $35 wholesale or retail, and they're going to be like, I'm happy to get $30 a piece. So those guys are going to put it on eBay for $30. So now all of a sudden, the scalpers who bought them all up at 35 from the shelf are competing against the other retailers or fake retailers that are just going to dump them on the market for 30 to make a quick flip. Then the retailers that think they're going to get 200 because Bryan got 100 a piece for them and Comic Tom got 200 a piece for them, I'm going to put them on 200, and if they don't sell them, that price goes down and down and down and down and down. And now you're competing with the people, the bottom feeders. Oh, I said that again. Damn it. But the people who are going to buy that for 17 and put it on for 30, now they're getting all of the money, and that number comes down. Maybe it's the greatest book ever made. Maybe it's Amazing Fantasy. They put in 20 Amazing Fantasy 15s, and everybody's got to do the hunt to find this. Boom, 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 boom. It goes back up.
So how is this?
That's a market. That's market fluctuation based on. But if you just give 200 people like Bryan and Red Hood and Yee and Tom and, list off all the usual suspects.
Hold on.
And
They
all
didn't
of
do
them
that this
sell
time,
all of
though.
them.
They didn't do that.
No,
though.
but you just said all 200 people were selling them at once.
I didn't say all 200. I said that there was
the majority of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody wanted to cash in as quick as possible.
No, they were told to sell them over this weekend. They said you couldn't start selling till this weekend because they wanted to do a New York Comic Con
They
rollout.
wanted to compete with the New York Comic Con money. I understand that. But
Brian, we understand what you're saying, right? As far as testing the bags and all that. But what we're saying is when we get them as retailers, that's what we have to decide as a retailer is how much we have to sell them for. We're not really looking at quality of the bag.
I understand that, but so let me ask you something. This has been a profitable and a market that works in the sports card and card shop world. Let's just say this
Brian,
exact.
I just said it's not exactly the same because Whatnot supplied the market, okay, the only market, and they chose.
Hold on. Let me explain to you how it's. Let me explain to you how it's the same. So, if you're a baseball card shop, if you're a hobby shop,
yes,
Southern Hobby Supply says, "Hey, we have these cards that are getting ready to be released. If you want any, here's the buy-in." Okay. Yep. And we're only going to, we're going to try and get you as many as we can, but we can only say that we're going to guarantee you one case each. Okay. Right. And that has been the card shop world for the last 30 years. And it's been it's one of the most profitable collectibles things in the world. Don't get me wrong. There's some problems with it, but it's been working forever. Okay.
Right.
Whatnot said the same thing, okay? They said anybody that sells comics on Whatnot, they sent out an email to, and they said, if you want to get in on this, we're going to guarantee you at least one pack, but we're going to try and get you what you want, but we're going to guarantee you at least one. They did the exact same thing. That's what. How is it any different than what the card world has been doing?
Well,
yes, no.
I'll explain. Can I explain?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're Dave and Adams. Every card shop in America has a Dave and Adams cap. Maybe 90%, 95%.
Wait. Every card shop has a Dave and Adams account? But Dave and Adams isn't a retail, isn't a like a Southern Hobby. They're not a wholesaler.
It absolutely is. I have a Dave and Adams account.
They're not a wholesaler. They're 100%
yes, they
not.
Are.
No, they're not, Dennis. The card wholesalers are Southern
Dave
Hobby.
Adams Card World. I literally used to buy all of my Magic the Gathering from Dave and Adams.
I'm telling you, Dave and Adams is not a wholesaler. If I'm gonna buy the cards from Dave and Adams sports cards the same amount of money that you're gonna buy them for. Not being a wholesaler. Dave and Adams DA Card World is not a wholesaler. Anybody can go to Dave and Adams to buy stuff from.
I understand everybody can go to Dave and Adams.
Yeah.
But they also have, can I sign up for a wholesale account at Dave and Adams? We would ask that you first create an account, spend more than $500 or more. You will be added to our Premier program. If you, this program offers discounts on qualifying products as well as other perks.
But they're not a wholesaler.
Yes, they are.
They're not a wholesaler like the normal place where you would buy
Southern
get.
Hobby,
they're not.
I used to have. Oh my God. Okay, maybe they've changed. Okay, but when a card retailer for gaming product and non-sport product.
Just say any wholesaler. Okay, it doesn't have to be Dave and Adams. I think we're
Southern
caught
Hobby,
up.
Alliance,
GTS.
Yeah.
GTS.
Yeah.
Dave and Adams was one of my wholesalers. I had my primary Magic account through Dave and Adams, through Wizards of the Coast. Dave and Adams chose how many cases I would get for every Magic release based on what my previous velocity was.
I don't think Dave and Adams is a card seller. I don't think Dave and Adams is a wholesaler.
So
Yeah.
you chose that as the description.
No, I didn't.
But what I'm
You
trying to
chose
say
it.
is, no, you did. I never said David Adams. You're the one that said David Adams. Rewind it, everybody.
I
You're
didn't
the
say
one
David
that said
Adams.
David Adams releases a card.
I did not.
Okay, but
Okay, so regardless, what was the point?
Yeah.
the point is that WotC makes the product, right? Marvel makes the product. WotC has selected wholesalers to sell their product. Marvel has a selected wholesaler to make their product. Okay? Occasionally, Marvel will allow retailers, all retailers can choose from them, to make variants. Then Whatnot comes in through the side and says, hey, Marvel, we want to do these shinies. Meanwhile, Jesse and I can never call Marvel and ask to do a shiny foil variant for our store.
What
Right,
do you
Jesse?
mean?
Well, that I don't know the answer to because I've never asked.
Oh, I've tried.
Okay,
That's why
so
I know.
That would be more you. Yeah.
Okay, so Marvel has chosen Whatnot to be the only people, because Marvel like to keep those foil variants for just their booths at conventions, which they've decided to stop doing as of San Diego last year or the year before. I can't remember what year they stopped. 2 years ago.
I thought any retailer can contact Marvel and go, or DC and go, hey, I want to create a.
Not Marvel. No.
For the
Well,
foils.
anybody can contact them. Anybody can contact Marvel.
And on top of that, and we discussed this yesterday, I can't call and say, you might be able to now because everything's changed. But let me just hypothetically, I can't say I want to do Ultimate Fallout 4 tomorrow. Well, we don't have that in production right now. On top of that, I want to do a foil. No, we're not allowing retailers to do foils. I had to wait till they did a facsimile of Ultimate Fallout before I could do my Dejervik Virgin variant.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
okay.
they don't just let you do it.
So yeah,
the
Chris
fact that
Rojas is
Whatnot-
right. I'm thinking of the Mexican foils. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So not any retailer to just say I would
Not
like
through
a foil
Marvel. Not through Marvel.
Not through Marvel.
Yeah,
which
but
we're
through
only talking
DC
about
they
Marvel
can.
right now.
Yeah, but through
It's
DC
a
and other
34,
places you
they'll
can.
do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
So right now, Jesse or me cannot contact Marvel and say, I would like to do a Doctor Doom foil.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pretend Whatnot didn't exist.
Yeah.
You mean the book that came out 3 months ago that we haven't put in print for the last 2 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't do it, Dennis. Okay, but now Whatnot has come in through the side and said, we want to do these foil packs. We're going to randomize them. We're going to make sure they don't get damaged. Awesome idea. We're always looking for new ideas. But then Whatnot then picks, and yes, they might have sent the email to all of the Whatnot comic sellers. I don't know that for a fact. They might have picked and chosen. It seems like it's the usual suspects that were given opportunity on this, but I didn't see the guy that flips up cards selling comic books on Whatnot selling these packs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeezy.
You know, the guy that no. There's an old timey guy who sells crap comics, but he then gives you a deck of cards and you build poker hands, at 2 a.m. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that I don't think got this opportunity. That's
So
my
you
opinion.
don't think it went to everyone, is what you're saying?
Right, correct. Okay, so then Whatnot gets this awesome deal that nobody else can get, and then they pick and choose the people that they want to sell this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might have only gotten 1 box, and Yi might have only gotten 1 box, and Red Hood might have only gotten 1 box, and Big Leg might have gotten 1 box. But do we think that they're not going to give Comic Tom as many as he wanted?
Okay,
Or
so can I
2%?
just pause this real quick?
Sure.
How is this any different than you as a retailer going in and getting 20 of those variants, whereas a regular person can only get 1? You said we were just talking in the segment before this, how you as a retailer can go in before the con and say, I want 20 of those variants.
Oh, that was Jesse. I said I'd come back and pick up 3.
Either way, you can get more because you're a retailer, right? And I understand why, because you've made so much money for this company in the past. How is that any different? And by the way, I'm just playing devil's advocate. How is that any different than Comic Tom, who's made a ton of money for Whatnot, getting more than the regular person?
Well, if you're under the auspices that this is a fair distribution.
It's a fair distribution of at least 1 per.
Okay. So the peasants get the scraps and the elite ruling cast.
It's just like the variant situation that you were talking about earlier.
Jesse, you want to try this?
Well, the argument is very simple. How many people that sell on Whatnot are complaining about this? Right? So if no one from Whatnot as a seller isn't complaining about this, then I don't think those sellers care. They've already moved on and they're selling whatever they sell. Some people might not have the customer base to sell anything over $20, and that is true in the live streaming world. There are comic book people that sell that they're dollar sellers, right? And there's nothing wrong with dollar sellers. So I think at the end of the day, I look back in the day and say, listen, there's always going to be allocations. You're never going to get away from that in any type of collectible world or anything, really. There's always going to be allocations. It's up to you to sell what you get, and it's up to you to move on to the next stage. Is there preferences in the comic book world? Absolutely. I was part of that world. All right. And I've looked back and I said, wow, man, that wasn't really fair for everybody else on what I was able to do. But during the time, that's what I did to build my business. And that was what was offered to me. This isn't something that's, oh my gosh, illegal and where they're doing this and we're then go to the Supreme Court on. This is just basic. How does Whatnot get their brand out there more? They get their brand out there more by people selling more product. And if it's all the same product and they're able to get 500 people to sell the same product, I guess more power to them. I don't see an issue with that. My thing was when we get into the retail world, we're not live streamers. I do both. I'm both retail and live streamer. I don't know if I could sell something for 400 and then go in my store and try to sell it for 400 and say, well, because I sold that live stream in an auction for 400, this is now 400 because that person isn't buying on an auction.
So but you don't have to sell it on the live stream. You can sell, just because it was originally sold on live stream doesn't mean it always has to be sold on live stream.
Oh, no, I get that.
Okay.
I'm just saying I have traveled to thousands of comic book stores over the last 43 years. There are people that don't even have cash registers. There are people that only take cash, right? So they're not going to be live streaming this. They buy it for 50, they sell it for 100. Done. They're happy.
Yeah.
If you're a live streamer and you sell it for 100, maybe you're not happy because Brian sold it for 200. I'm not in that Whatnot world. Even though I sell live stream and I sell to a different customer.
Well, you do it in the same way, but just a different form, right?
Right, different form.
Yeah, with just a different item.
And here's the thing, and Brian, we had this conversation, and I personally, now that I don't have an affiliation with Whatnot, and I probably would never participate in one of their Ponzi schemes or pyramid schemes again, because I just think it benefits just them and it makes you their pawn. I see this as that, and the reason we're having this conversation, and clearly the chat does not agree with me or Jesse on this, or especially me, and they definitely agree with you, Brian. So that's a given.
Well,
But
I'll tell you what, not everybody, because I've seen multiple people in there giving me shit.
You're not reading all the messages.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
it's going. It's
50-50.
definitely lively in the
Yeah.
chat tonight.
Yeah.
Good job, chat. I worry about these type of things, and once again, Jesse and I have a brand, and Brian, you have a brand as well. You have very much a brand. And listening to MJ Comics last night, your brand is very strong. But when you succumb to some of these things without seeing the things that Jesse and I are trying to advise you about, think of the 130 per pack that you sold.
Mm-hmm.
And those, I think about, and actually I was vindicated when we did that little search last night. When I look at what a whatnot variant typically sells for now, I can count on one hand how many variants have upheld their value for the last 2 years since whatnot's been doing this, 2.5, 3 years. Okay. The Invincible, the Omni-Man, the Adam Eve, I think that one of the Batman Kirkhams, a handful of variants have upheld their value. I hold the record high for that Invincible 9.8 gold foil variant. And I did it on Whatnot. Okay. But when I look at some of the books that I sold for stupid money on Whatnot, I'm a little ashamed that I fell for their scheme for so long, because these books are not holding up. And when a company like Whatnot with very little transparency does these little stunts, and they've been doing it for 3 years now, and you start seeing what some of these books are going to the customers that you provide, that tarnishes my brand from 2 years ago.
Yeah, but is Whatnot selling these books, or is
No.
Brian selling these
They're
books?
getting Brian to sell
Right.
these books.
That's the difference. That is the difference. Listen,
Whatnot's brand does not eat the curb when all of the Ninja Funk books have failed and are available for, what did you say, 18 cents on Diamond?
Yeah. 60 cents.
Does that
60
hurt?
cents,
Does that
yeah.
hurt Whatnot's brand? Nope. They make a deal with Marvel, and they make sure 200 people have a box each to sell over New York Comic Con weekend, and nobody questions Whatnot ever again.
So can I ask you this? What about, and again, just playing devil's advocate, you said you can count on one hand how many Whatnot variants have held their value.
Yeah.
What variants overall have held their value in that same amount of time that Whatnot has?
Jesse, I don't know if you've done this, but I do this about every 2 or 3 months. I go on eBay and I put in, and you guys can do this at home, or Brian could do it. I look up Wonder World Comics variant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've made probably 50 variants in my time, and I do a reverse search.
Sold. Okay.
Okay. And then, of course, the worst selling one is the one with my face on it. So I'll definitely
So
say
a
that.
9.8 for less than the cost of grading, and a signature series for less than the cost. Okay.
Yeah, but you know what? I gave Greg Horn a case of each one of those, so Greg might have been selling those cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do that, now search for highest first.
Well, why would I search for highest?
Because you want to see what the highest people pay for them. Okay, so here's 150 for a signed Kevin Smith 9.8, 125 for the 9.8 on my High Republic. Okay, 44. Then you go for the lowest.
Okay.
This is the part that I care about.
Gotcha.
So what's the lowest selling? Somebody dumped one of my Grim Fairy Tales, which was my first variant I ever did for a publisher. That is not mine. The Wonder World or the Wonder Woman is not mine. The Barack the Barbarian, that was a silly concept. But my Mighty Morphin 25, we sold those for $10 on release. Still goes for $15. That's an Australian. You can't count that. My Rebel, Vader Down Rebel sold for less than 30. My Masters of the Universe is still selling for 35. My High Republic, the trade dress is selling for less.
The problem with this is that there's hardly any sales. Like there's only a couple of books that you're selling. So like I think
these are other people selling them. These are other people selling.
Yeah, but no, but what I'm saying is that there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It says 17
So there's
sales.
only 17 sales total. So like I don't think your thing is I'm not taking a shot at your company, but I don't think that the sample size is big enough. You know what I mean?
Well, there's only 100 people selling my variants. So 17 out of 100 variants being sold right now that have the Wonderworld brand attached to it. You see what I'm saying? 17% sell. Does that make sense?
No.
So if you look at for sale right now, there's 100 that say Wonderworld. Just get rid of comics. Because I don't think people actually put comics in it. Wonderworld variant. And yes, and Joe's right. The reason I stopped doing variants 2 years ago, our store exclusives are not doing well.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
You guys are crazy. Every time this comes up, I've done over 400 exclusives.
Yeah.
You know how many exclusives have sold out? My last 375 exclusives. The only exclusives that did not sell out because I over-ordered on purpose was Rick and Morty, Bob's Burger, and
But a
Power
sellout is different than secondary market value.
Why do I care about secondary market? My job is to sell out and let the secondary market do as they do.
I love you, Jesse, but
a good
right now
portion of my
you've
customers don't flip.
But Jesse, you've sold as many as I have. You've sold as many as I have. You have 17 results for sold Jesse
I don't
James
care if I have 0 results. That doesn't matter to me. What I care about is when I do exclusive, is it going to sell out? So if I go to Bryan McClay and the last 25 exclusives I've done with him have sold out in 5 to 10 minutes, I don't care what happens to the secondary market. If someone else makes money on it, fantastic. If they lose money on it, then that's on them. But what you have to do when you get to exclusives, that comes down to the store. And if you're not going to do exclusives, that's great. You're not going to lose money. But if you're going to do an exclusive, you better be doing it to sell out and not holding a percentage. Well, you can hold 5% of your exclusives, but that's how the exclusive works. And what happens is we allow so many people to do exclusives that can't even sell 10 of their 200 or their 10 of their 500. So Dennis, I understand what you're saying, but in the flip end, to say exclusives don't sell, I think you have to take that by case and a store by store. And I also blame the publishers for when items don't sell out, because they shouldn't have sold it in the first place to that dealer. And when we see pump and dump and we see this one dealer who at the end of the year or twice a year has his pallet sales, right? Or these now, guys, you didn't get me on my you didn't get me going here. These people that have mystery boxes, hey, get my mystery boxes of my 10 books to get the one expensive. Why are you doing that? Because you can't sell your other 10 exclusives, right?
And this is also what's happening with these mystery packs from Whatnot. The ones that are common are being dumped for basically the price of the low hanging fruit. And you said it in that MJ interview, Brian. You know, people are going to trade those off like sports cards, and they're going to get rid of the junk they don't want, and they're going to keep buying so they can complete the colors or whatever. I get it.
Yeah. So whatever secondary market, when you're a retailer doing exclusives, you have to figure out how to make your money back.
Hold on, Dennis. This is the standard foil, and it's selling for $98. What are you talking about?
Well, I was talking about the Deadpool that sold for $40 or $50. Not that one.
But that's one pack isn't $40 or $50, and you're guaranteed to get at least 3 of those in one pack.
Well, you just said the average was selling for a minimum of 100.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say the average. I said this Doom book sold for 100.
No, what I'm saying is the packs are selling for 100 plus in the hopes that you get one of the super rares. And if not, you're dumping the one book to
No,
get your money back.
hold on, and I just want people to know that the commons aren't if a buy into the pack, okay, on the secondary market, we won't even talk about retail. If a buy into the pack is what did you say, 130?
Well, let's just say it's 150.
Okay, 150.
Right.
And you get 3 comic books. At least one of those is going to be a regular foil. And if those regular foils are selling for over $50, that's decent. You're going to get at least one silver, and those are selling for at least, here's one that's selling for $60. You see what I'm saying? So like it's not as bad as you're saying. They're not
Well, that's this week, Brian.
I understand. You're right. And I think that goes with any variant. And that's what I've been saying since the beginning.
And
These are not going to.
I got out of the variant game.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Again, I still want to make this point. I sell exclusives because I like the book, I like the artist, I like the creator, and I want to be part of that.
I did most of my variants to support people.
Right. So I do it to support people. And when I sell it to my customer base, I sell it to my customer base because they want it. I don't sit there and they say, oh my gosh, you're then get this exclusive for $25 and you're then be able to go sell it for $50. I'm just providing a service for my brand to my customer base. I legacy everything, right? So you have legacy that's involved in my company. I have 11 exclusives coming out over the next 3 months and we'll sell out in 10 to 15 minutes again. So if you're doing an exclusive to make a ton of money, you're not doing exclusives right. You can talk about that peach all you want, but then you also have to minus out the 900 that did not work. And so the exclusives world, again, folks, I want to make sure that you understand, I don't do exclusives to tenfold my money. I do my exclusives to take care of my customer base on something that I want to partner up with my brand, give them a great product at a great price. And if they decide to resell it, great. I can tell you, I've been very fortunate. My stuff really doesn't hit resell. Why? Because they're buying it for brand purposes. That's just me. All right. I'm not defending the rest of the people that do exclusives. Yep.
Sweet.
I'm just telling you. So
yeah.
Anyway.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and so on what Brian was talking about, you're selling. Are what are you considering these mystery packs? Are you considering these mystery packs as variants? What are you considering them?
Well, would you consider these mystery packs if you know that you're gonna get? There's only 5 books you can get. Are they still mystery packs? Because I think that there's a difference. But I understand that you don't know what you're going to get in there, so it's a mystery. But it's not like a normal mystery pack, like you're saying, Jesse, where it's like they're just offloading all their Drek in there.
Right.
And that Drek you can get anywhere else. You can only get these comics in these packs. Okay, you can't go to anywhere else and get them. So that's one thing that makes it a little bit different than any other mystery box or pack. So again, I constantly, I get a lot of heat for this because, I constantly think about card world, the card that this is, I look at this as a card thing. This is very similar to what the card world is doing. So like, you don't call a baseball card pack a mystery pack, right? It's a baseball card pack. Like, you know what I mean?
But there are,
I'm trying to figure out.
There are baseball card people who do repacks.
Yes.
And those people are under a lot of scrutiny.
Yes. But these aren't repacks.
No, I understand, but I'm just extrapolating here.
Yeah.
Right.
And if Topps made a special pack and only gave it to Backyard Breaks and the guy in Ohio, the family guy, and he only gave them to Neo to sell off on his, if Fanatics said we're going to make this special influencer pack for only people to sell.
Shout out to Alex with the $5 super chat.
Yeah.
He says, as an LCS, what is the minimum for an exclusive cover?
How good are you? How good are you as a negotiator?
Yeah,
That's true.
That is my answer to anything when it comes to LTDs. If you know how to negotiate, then that number is going to be the number that you can negotiate. Anybody that doesn't want to negotiate, you probably shouldn't be doing exclusives with them.
Right.
Great answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marvel has a pretty hard line, 3,000. DC just dropped theirs down to 1,000 or 500.
Yep.
1,000.
Yeah. So,
Image is 500.
The more desperate they get, the more they're willing to hit these gimmicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if you have that relationship, I've done exclusives that were only 25.
Yeah.
Right. I've done exclusives that have been, 500. I get over 500. I get nervous on that. Going over 500 on the exclusive. I'm usually around 100 to 250. If I can get to 250, I'm good. I took a big chance, and I know everybody. I know exactly everybody that called me an idiot for doing Rick and Morty exclusives back in the day, right? Because sometimes you do take chances, but you look at something and it's cool, and it's like, oh my gosh, I love this TV show. I don't care if I sell any of these, and you go out and do it, and obviously it's a success for us. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to negotiate anything. Marvel, you can't negotiate. Let me back up there a little bit on that.
Not yet.
Negotiate with Marvel, but you will be because of the 2,000 piece gap there, right?
Well, and as these things come down,
right.
And as Whatnot gets the best cuts, retailers are going to start doing less because they can't compete with Whatnot in these foils and these packs. I think a lot of retailers are going to choose to do less Marvels because they're not getting the good stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I mean. Like
who knows how it's going to happen?
The industry is changing so quickly.
Yep.
I mean,
it's pivoting.
Yeah, it's pivoting.
Yeah.
You've got it. And speaking of pivoting, you guys, next week we have a special guest, ladies and gentlemen. One of the bigger names in comic books that has made a pivot recently, Philip with Ignition Publishing. Is it Ignition Publishing or Ignition Press? Ignition Press.
Ignition Press.
Yeah. Philip Sabick
just
with
to let everybody
Ignition
in the chat
Press.
know, we've had at least a minimum of 10 of our guests over 36 episodes that have told a story about Philip Sabick, who changed their life in some direction early on in their career. Philip is one of the guys. He's definitely one of the good guys in this industry. And we said it right here on this show. Once Philip said goodbye to Boom, and then the Boom sale happened, Jesse and I said to every one of you, we know Philip. He has something bigger in mind if he is finally leaving Boom and moving to someplace else. And we found out at New York Comic Con, and Philip is going to be here next week to tell us all about this new direction.
Yep. Yeah, I will tell you about Philip, a quick story here. I had left Diamond in 2017 to go on with the path that I felt live streaming was where it was at, and Diamond did not fit that path for me. And when COVID hit, I received a call from Philip, and he said, Jesse, what can Boom do for you? And I said, well, Philip, I haven't been with Diamond for 2 years. I haven't really ordered for you. He goes, that's not what I asked you. What can we do to help you? And what they did to help Jesse James Comics and myself and my family to stay in business, I can never repay him back, him and Ross. So he is a gentleman that I think when you hear him for the first time, the way he speaks in the format of the retailer first. We are going to take care of the retailer because the retailer takes care of the customer base. And I think with his new company, with his partners, you're really going to learn a lot next week. Listen, I've spent 36 weeks, 36 shows trying to get him on the show. So we're very excited about it. I think it's going to be an awesome event for this. So
yeah, going to be good stuff. Tomorrow night, for Wednesday night review. Come hang out with us. We're going to have a special guest. We are going to have Adam Fortier, who is running this new Kickstarter for Pre-Code Horror facsimile collection, which is very interesting. We talked about this a few weeks ago or a week ago on Wednesday night or Saturday night. I think it was Wednesday night. Which is very interesting. This because, of course, you guys all know I'm a Punch 12 fan, and I saw the Punch 12 facsimile. But then I also saw a lot of books that aren't getting the facsimile treatment. So it's going to be interesting to talk to him about this and his love for pre-code horror. And of course, it's a Kickstarter, and you guys know I'm really big on crowdfunding comics at the moment. So we're going to have Adam on tomorrow for the show. So,
and I don't want to make this just and I'm not shitting on Adam for tomorrow's show. Don't take it this way. But one of the things that I've been talking about for a good, I don't know, 4 years, is when the industry runs out of ideas, they rehash.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of facsimiles and 1 in 25 variants for facsimiles and dollar books in boxes, dollar book facsimiles, like you could find an amazing Spider-Man 258 in any dollar box in this country, yet Marvel released a $3.99 cover price facsimile with a 1 in 25. You're running out of ideas, industry.
Right.
When DC has re-released every single one of its keys, they are pivoting because they've run out of ideas.
Why can't they just say reprint?
Yeah.
This drives me nuts.
Well, we had one of the best.
Reprint. Why don't they say reprint? Because they don't want a new buyer to think that they're buying a reprint. That's the only. It's just like going from 3D,
marketing.
Right? 3D to lenticular, right?
Yep.
Same freaking thing. Just call it is. It is what it is. You know, I want to talk a little bit about that horror Kickstarter that's coming up. You know, I sell a little over 3,000 books a week live streaming, and then store wise about 1,000 to 1,200, whatever. But that's working a lot. But I will tell you, to this day, the number one selling genre out of those 4,000 books every week is horror. It is amazing how much the horror business has captivated the customer base. And it's not superhero orientated, right? You don't really have action heroes. You have people, and people like to think, wow, I could be that person. It's hard to think that you could be Superman, but I could be that guy killing that swamp monster. Right. And of course, you're talking about the most iconic covers.
Absolutely. That's why I'm not shitting on that, because this is an independent guy who's done the work to make these facsimile variants, and it's not serving a corporate master. It's serving a fan base directly.
So,
nobody asked Marvel to do Amazing Spider-Man 258. Nobody. First appearance of the Puma. You know, or whatever that issue is.
Right. Yeah, it's Puma. Yeah, it is Puma.
Yeah. And the one before it with nothing in it, and the one after it with nothing in it, you know.
Right.
So a reprint.
Just real fast. Doom, stop using logic in your post.
Yeah. Doom. He's Doom's got it. A reprint is a new copy of a previously published work, while a facsimile is a reproduction that aims to exactly replicate the physical appearance of an original document, including any imperfections, any unique features, often used for rare or historical items while preserving the original look. Essentially, a reprint focuses on content, while a facsimile focuses on the visual fidelity of the original.
I love Google copy paste. I love that, right? There's no way Mr. Dallas Cowboy fan wrote that verbatim. Whatever. Great show. I think it was fun conversation. Folks, I know some of you thought that we're getting mad and all this stuff.
No.
This is excitement in the industry. And if you're not kind of yelling every once in a while and screaming, this probably isn't the right world for you to be.
And you don't. That means you also have zero passion for what you do for a living.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have a lot of passion. I think there's great hope in the industry. Obviously, I see it from a different direction than most retailers because I am, I've been live streaming for 9 years. It's very tough to say to my live streamers, hey, you in Nebraska that don't have a comic book store for 500 miles from you, I just can't take care of your comic book therapy and your comic book needs. And so it's very challenging once you get in the comic book world to revert back to retail. It's a big challenge. After this show, I know we're going to be shutting off here in a minute. Within 2 minutes, I'm going to be live streaming for 3 hours, right? And so the comic book world is about energy. It's about having a good conversation, understanding that at the end of the day, we're just selling comics.
Well, you guys know I've been talking about one of the things that I've been really big on for ever since I've been creating content for comic book stuff. As long as it's exciting people about comic books, I'm all for it. Now, there's nuances in everything, but man, the excitement over New York Comic Con was palpable. The excitement over, beyond the con, whether that was on Whatnot and these Year in Marvel packs, or on eBay Live, and Rob Liefeld, just destroying it from his, office in LA, doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
It was very exciting.
And I know I'm talking a lot here at the end, but in my 43 years of doing this, while you two were talking, I was trying to figure out one year that I did not enjoy myself. And even in the 90s, as a fan, I didn't care what is going on in the comic book world. The hell do I care if stores are closing? My store was open. And I was getting what I loved was comic books. And so in my 43 years, folks, I'm more excited than this year. And I'll be just as excited next year and even more so. I love this conversation. I think it was a great conversation. And I'll stop talking after this. What makes this show is we had so much diversity in the room, in the chat room, from people that are sellers, are retailers, are just comic book fans, podcasters, influencers. There's some experiencers in the room. And that's what this show is about. Yes, we try to keep it as industry related as possible, but we also know that there's a lot of things that happen that don't actually pertain to comics that aren't in the actual industry.
Amen.
Yep.
All right, you guys, that being said, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, drop a comment if you guys want to talk about anything that we talked about in this episode, and make sure you guys go give Jesse a follow on his eBay Live, which he's going to do. Go stop by the Mall of Monroe if you're in the Michigan area, and stop by Dystopia and Wonderworld Comics, and Jesse has something to show you guys.
Yep. So if you want to do something unique, do a force beam hole. That is a force beam hole. It's a bullet hole. Well, it's not actually a bullet hole, but it's cut in between the comic book from every single page. You might not be able to see it, but it's right here in the middle, and it's just a hole that goes through the whole book. It's a polybag sealed. That's a great way to do something a little bit more unique than just doing XYZ. So,
amen.
Anyways.
That being said, much love, you guys. We'll see you soon. Adios.